And we are live and on the air. This is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. We have a couple of very busy people. We've got my Canadian friend, Dale, working on knots right now, I believe.
Yep, that's to hold my cell phone so I don't drop it.
Wow. Contemplating climbing some towers, perhaps, tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That should be fun. Maybe we can have a show and tell.
Right.
How you doing, Jani? Jani in Finland, where he's just having breakfast and coffee. And then we have Pamela in Australia, trying to be quiet, because her baby Chelsea's trying to sleep. And I'm Dyer from Connecticut. And we are going to be talking about some very interesting science stories. We're going to be talking about bioengineered limbs for mice, and hopefully someday for people. This is a story that was actually covered last night in TWIS, which was a link between the brain and the immune system. Well, I always think of the brain, the blood-brain barrier, how difficult, nothing can pass through that blood-brain barrier. But now some researchers are finding that there actually is. There is a pathway, if you will, and the brain is linked to our immune system. And we got another interesting story, an endangered species of sawfish, and at least some of these females have, I'll say, turned to parthenogenesis, where they're producing without sex. Now, I don't know if this is something new in the species, or if it's always been there and we just didn't know about it. This is kind of the endangered species night. We got another story about these. There's four specimens of this type of turtle left in the world. And there's a male and a female. And they've been trying to get them to, they can mate, but they've been unable to produce eggs, and they think they know what the answer to that problem is. This is from the Turtle Survival Alliance. If you want to survive as an animal, you better have some humans behind you. Otherwise, you could be in trouble. Number 5 was interesting in that it's talking about some women, when they go for their prenatal test, they're getting some surprising results. And this is, the important thing here is the researchers are discovering that where a woman may get a result that says there's an abnormality and may think that that abnormality is in the fetus, it actually may be with her, in her blood. So she's the one with the abnormality, not the baby. And if the mother doesn't get the right information, there can be some consequences to that. 2 stories I'm gonna need a bigger brain to help explain. Talking about genotype and phenotype, and genetic control of phenotype variability. And another one talking about how some MIT researchers believe they created an algorithm that can help robots deal with uncertainty. An important step and one more tick to actual AI. But let us start off, and let me screen share. Got a neat little picture. The screen share works. Okay. Well, you can see a teeny tiny little bioengineered forelimb of a mouse. And it's bioengineered forelimb. And it's a team from the Massachusetts General Hospital has made the first steps towards development of bioartificial replacement limbs suitable for transplantation. The research described using an experimental approach previously used to build bioartificial organs, in this case to engineer rat forelimbs. The composite nature of our limbs makes building a functional biological replacement very challenging. Limbs contain muscles, bone, cartilage, blood vessels, tendons, ligaments, and nerves, each of which has to be rebuilt and requires a specific supporting structure called the matrix. We have shown that we can maintain the matrix of all of these tissues in their natural relationship to each other, that we can culture the entire construct over prolonged periods of time, and they can repopulate the vascular system and muscle culture. Reading on, over the past 2 decades, a number of patients have received donor hand transplants. Yeah, transplants are becoming popular. I don't know if that's the right term, but while these procedures can significantly improve quality of life, they also expose recipients to the risk of lifelong immunosuppressive therapy. While the progenitor cells need to regenerate all of the tissues that make up a limb could be provided by the potential recipient, what has been missing is the matrix or scaffold on which cells could grow in appropriate tissue. The current study uses technology in which living cells are stripped from a donor organ with a detergent solution. The remaining matrix is then repopulated with progenitor cells appropriate to the specific organ. The team and elsewhere have used this decellularization technique to regenerate kidneys, livers, hearts, and lungs, but this is the first time they've tried to do it with a complex tissue of a bio-artificial limb. The same decellularization process used in the whole organ studies was used to strip all cellular materials from forelimbs removed from diseased rats in a way that preserved the primary vasculature, mispronounced that, and nerve matrix. After thorough removal of cellular debris, a process that can take a week, what remained was the cell-free mixture that provides structures to all a limb's complex tissues. At the same time, populations of muscle and vascular cells were grown in cultures. The research team then cultured the forelimb matrix in a bioreactor, within which vascular cells were injected into the limb's main arteries to regenerate veins and arteries. Muscle progenitors were injected directly into the matrix, SHEATHS, I can't quite pronounce that word, stealth or something, that define the position of each muscle, and after 5 days, electric stimulation was applied to the potential limb growth to further promote muscle formation, and after 2 weeks, the grafts were removed from the bioreactor. Analysis of the bioartificial limbs confirmed the presence of vascular cells along with blood vessel walls, muscle cells aligned with appropriate fibers, and basically they attached these to the rats, and they found with a strength of 80% of what would be seen in newborn animals. The researchers note that while regrowing nerves within a limb culture and regenerating into a recipient's nervous system is one of the next challenges that needs to be faced. And I will stop there. So yay, making progress. Bioengineered arm. I don't know if that's as cool as getting your little robotic arm. Maybe your little robotic arm, you can really fine it and make it super strong and fly like Superman. I don't know. But it's more natural, and you don't have to worry about tissue with this process. You don't have to worry about tissue replacement and all the other problems. Dell. Dale. With your popcorn. You're going to sign up for some organ replacements. You're doing climbing, right? So what you should do maybe is you should kind of clone one of your, in case you fall. You never know. You're climbing what, 6,000 feet or something? You slip and fall, you're going to need a new arm. And maybe a new leg.
Whether I fall from 15 feet or 1,500, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be good. But the secret is don't fall. Hold on.
You know, you were explaining very coolly about this process a little bit. Maybe you can talk about it if you don't mind.
About climbing?
Yes, how you climb your tower.
Well, so the first thing is, well, you know what I'll do is I'll probably go tonight and do a little demo, and I'll explain it, because it makes way more sense when you see the stuff. When you explain it and you start using some of the terms, it's like, what's he talking about? But if I actually show you, it's like, oh yeah, that's obvious. It's nothing.
Man, that would be fantastic. Okay.
I just want to finish my popcorn first.
Del, when you're eating your popcorn, I'm hearing some background noise. Maybe make sure you mute your mic.
Okay.
Until you're ready to say something very important.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to story number 2. And this is kind of a short story. It was covered last night in TWIS, and it's talking about finding a link between the brain, going past the brain, and the body's immune system. And I want to screen share as well. We've got a little picture here. Don't know how much the picture is going to help you, but there you go. In a stunning, they say, this is the University of Virginia Health Systems, a stunning discovery that overturns decades of teaching, research had determined that the brain is directly connected to the immune system by vessels previously not thought to exist. Wow, finding something new vessels in the body. And the discovery could have profound implications for diseases from autism to Alzheimer's. Because the brain is like every other tissue connected to the peripheral immune system through meningeal lymphatic vessels, it changes entirely the way we perceive the neuro-autoimmune interaction. We always perceived it to be as something esoteric that can't be studied, but now we can ask some mechanical questions. The discovery was made possible by the work of Antonio Lovoa, PhD at postdoctorate fellow in this guy Kipnis's lab at the University of Virginia Health Systems. The vessels were detected after Lovoa developed a method to mount a mouse's meninges, M-E-N-I-N-G-E-S, the membranes covering the brain, in a single slide that you could examine them as a whole. It was fairly easy, actually. There was one trick. We fixed the meninges within the skull cap so that the tissue is secured in its physiological condition, and then we dissected it. If we had done it the other way around, it wouldn't have worked. After noticing vessel-like patterns in the distribution of immune cells in his slides, he tested for lymphatic vessels, and they were there. The impossible existed. As to how the brain's lymphatic vessels managed to escape notice all this time, Kipnis described them as very well hidden, and noted that they follow a major blood vessel down into the sinuses, an area difficult to image. It's so close to the blood vessel you just miss it. And if you don't know what to look for, you're not going to find it. Live imaging of these vessels was crucial to demonstrating their function. The unexpected presence of the lymphomic vessels raises a tremendous number of questions that need to be answered about the workings of both the brain and the diseases that plague it, such as Alzheimer's. In Alzheimer's, there are accumulations of big chunks in the brain. We think they may be accumulating in the brain because they are not being efficiently removed by these blood vessels. We noted that the vessels look different with age, so the role they play in aging is another avenue to explore. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that you could have, I'll say, we could be able to now actually cure Alzheimer's or treat it far more effectively than we are doing now that we've found this blood vessel connection.
It really is super cool that after all these years of dissecting bodies and they've discovered this. So I'd love to see a visual of what those vessels actually look at, how small they are, and why were they so difficult to detect.
They said they were next to another major artery. And it might be as simple as nobody was expecting to see anything, these blood vessels right next to that major artery. They weren't looking closely enough. And this particular individual was. And I see now joining us is Justin, also feeding, although I don't think he must be feeding on something very healthy, not popcorn. Green stuff, there he goes, green stuff he's growing himself, perhaps. Okay.
Popcorn's healthy.
Story number 3, which we've talked, me and Pamela had a little discussion beforehand, so we can get into our first really good discussion, and hopefully Justin can join in about extinction. We're talking about, in this case, some sawfish. As a story we talked about, people in TWIS, Blair talked about yesterday, so I'm sure Justin knows what the story is about. In any event, we're talking about endangered sawfish virgin births. And let me screen share a little picture of a sawfish. And I'll read from the story, and we're talking about parthenogenesis, something I know next to nothing about. Blair was talking about it, and she kind of sloughed it off because she knows everything there is to know about it, and I don't. I will also talk a little bit about it, a Wikipedia link talking about parthenogenesis. In any event,
I'd like to know how to do it myself.
Some female members of a critically endangered species of sawfish are reproducing in the wild without sex. First-time discovery of these offspring from virgin births in this particular species. Earlier evidence that vertebrates might sometimes reproduce via a process called parthenogenesis had primarily come from isolated examples of captive animals, birds, reptiles, sharks, and insects. The animals in question surprised their keepers, by giving birth despite the fact they had no opportunity to mate. In addition, researchers recently reported 2 free-living female snakes, each pregnant with a single parthenogen. Therefore, no one really knew if this phenomena took place in a significant event in a wild population. This was Damien Chapman of Stony Brook University at the Pfizer Laboratory Field Museum of Chicago. The researchers' DNA analysis showed that 3% of the sawfish in their studies are products of parthenogenesis. The researchers say that sawfish could be the first family of marine animals to be driven to extinction due to overfishing and coastal habitat loss. And I thought there were others. Small-toothed sawfish are mainly found today only in a handful of locations, including the Kanalaka, Chuchi-Wachi, something or other, and Peace Rivers. We were conducting routine DNA fingerprinting of the sawfish and found in this area in order to see if relatives were often reproducing with relatives due to their small population, inbreeding. What the DNA fingerprints told us was altogether more surprising. The female sawfish are sometimes reproducing without even mating. And parthenogenesis is common in invertebrate, but rare in vertebrate animals. And vertebrate parthenogenesis is thought to occur when an unfertilized egg absorbs genetically identical sister cell. The resulting offsprings have about half of the genetic diversity of their mothers and often die. It's general feeling that vertebrate parthenogenesis was a curiosity and couldn't produce viable offspring, but they found 7 parthenogens, and they appeared to be in perfect health. The animals were tagged and released back into the wild. It's possible that this form of reproduction occurs mainly in small or dwindling populations. As for these sawfish, it's possible this ability could keep them going for a while longer. I had a question. I don't know if anybody here can answer it, but I don't see the advantage, the evolutionary advantage, parthenogenesis.
Well, it has to, I think, a little bit more to do with the male of the species. I mean, what does it say about a species, if you're the male, where the females have decided they don't even want to rely upon you for sex and reproduction? I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't happened in humans after the thousands of years of chauvinistic rule. The fact that humans haven't spontaneously started the parthenogenesis route, I'm just amazed. I mean, maybe that's what's so significant and seems so important about a lot of the religious figures in culture throughout the years, is that, wow, this must be a sign of something big. If now this woman didn't even want to have, no man was even worthy of or worth spending the time with, that they would just have the child on their own.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a go myself. See if I can do it.
All right, like, just concentrate really hard, and maybe you can pull it off. I don't know.
You need some sister cells. I don't know if I don't know if you don't. Do you have a sister? Maybe the two of you can somehow commingle your cells or something.
Has one with her.
Hi. What did you say, sorry?
I thought, then isn't your sister still with you? Like.
No.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Right. So
no, she's in the shipping container.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there's it's so interesting that it's like that what is Jurassic Park, nature finds a way, kind of a thing, you know. The incredible thing about life is that the ultimate goal is survival, and even from bacteria learning to get nutrients from lead paint in a clean room, right, to parthenogenesis, to all of evolution's big changes that take place over time, life does find a way to adapt. And you know, in these dwindling populations, I sort of wonder if this was more common No, I mean, there's plants that do this too.
Mhm.
There's plants that do this. It's a lot of plants, in fact, that have this capability. And I sort of wonder if somewhere in the beginnings of life, of course, there wasn't a scenario where there was not the first Adam and Eve of life, but simply the first Eve. And that this sort of division of reproductive duties is something that we evolved into, and in some species, that remnant code of here's how you do it yourself isn't still there, and could still be in us. There's all sorts of, you think of evolution as always gaining, but of course there's always the trade-off. It's replacing something. Something else can go away. It doesn't always just add to it. But in species like this sawfish, it seems as though the earliest form of reproductive ability is still been maintained and kept up to date enough so that its offspring actually survive that process.
That is the interesting thing. As you say, this must be maybe far more common. They only discovered it with the sawfish when they're examining these babies. And then all of a sudden they say, wait a second, we've got these 7 babies, and looking at it, they're produced, parthenogenically. And it very well can, much more widespread. There's so much of the ocean we haven't explored. Heck, our first story, we're talking about a blood vessel along a major artery that we never even existed, connecting the brain to the immune system. We think that we've explored so much, and yet we probably don't even know half of the stuff. We probably don't know half of the stuff in our own bodies.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of interests me about that too is the correlation between smoking and warding off Alzheimer's. And of course we know that nicotine can make it past the blood-brain barrier. But it makes me sort of curious, the link with the immune system, because the smoking is a challenge to the immune system. It's a constant poking and forcing to resolve issues. But maybe this mechanism, this connection is involved in that, so that part of it is yes, there's dendrite affections that go on with nicotine, but they will prescribe nicotine patch to people who are suffering from Alzheimer's because it relieves symptoms. It'd be kind of curious to follow that further and see if this is part of the mechanism through which that's actually taking place, and it's not at the dendrite level. It's not the alterations to neurons that the nicotine receptors are creating, but something to do with the immune system being challenged and communicating to the brain. So this discovery has basically created an entire field of research that can now be done to test this connection and see what it actually influences. And a lot of times too, we have like the nicotine patch in the Alzheimer's thing. We have medications that work that we don't fully understand the mechanism of. And here is an amazing sort of scenario where we've discovered a mechanism, but we don't know what it's connected to exactly. We know it's between the brain and the immune system, but we don't know what drugs have been utilizing this. We don't know what diseases are either inhibited by or created by deficits or too much activity in this. This is like one of the rare cases sort of where we haven't backtracked the disease to a mechanism. We've discovered a mechanism and now need to connect all these diseases and drugs and influences from. So this is a very fascinating way. It's not really the way the science is used to working. We start with these symptoms and we backtrack them to a mechanistic cause somewhere in the body, and we isolate it and we narrow down, and aha, it seems to be taking place here. sort of like the Kirsten's epigenetic story the other night of finding the chromatin that was sort of the decider, not the proteins, right? In this scenario, aha, mechanism. What all is involved with it? This is fascinating. We're doing a ground up now.
You know, when it comes to smoke, our immune system, I would say, is largely indifferent to smoke. Now you inhale it, our immune system produces snot or something or whatever to get rid of it. But basically, it isn't until that smoke produces those nasty cancer tumors that all of a sudden the immune system says, uh-oh, we got to get in action. So I think the immune system might be largely indifferent to smoke.
Okay, so there's a few levels of that. One of them is, and people don't really think of it this way, but smoking involves putting your lips on a little filter that you assume was made in some factory where everything was sterile and clean. A lot of smoking-related gum disease has been connected to bacteria in filters, right? So you're putting this thing in your mouth that doesn't go through quite the same FDA food claim. It's not food. It's this thing that can actually harbor bacteria. I don't know if it's coming from the soil or the plants or the factory or what it is. But and it does create a bit of an immune response because there's inflammation taking place in the lungs constantly. There's all this stuff, so it does create a little elevated white blood cell count, that sort of thing.
I don't know, Justin. The first time you smoked, now I have attempted to smoke a cigarette once, and I almost died. Who the heck's wants to inhale this stuff? Wow, that's man.
It's absolutely insane.
So why don't, if there's all this bacteria in the filters, why don't people use those, like the 1950s, the ladies used to have like the stem and you'd put the cigarette in that, so your mouth would be on the steel or plastic or whatever thing that you own. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not on the cigarette. Wouldn't that be more hygienic?
You don't want to get beat up by the other smokers.
I think it looks much more elegant. I mean, if you're going to do it, be classy about it.
That's exactly the problem. Exactly why you're getting beaten up.
Oh,
hey,
rubbish.
guys, I'm just trying to look elegant over here. Hey, whoa! That's a big deal. Can a man be elegant and still, not be encroaching upon your homophobic fears and you have a low sales resistance to an alternative lifestyle? Huh?
Oh, rubbish. Why don't you invent a manly-looking one and make a fortune?
No, I don't want to do anything that would encourage people to smoke.
No, but then they won't get these mouth diseases from the filters.
Actually, so this is sort of an old story, though. This has largely been discovered, and things have been upgraded since. But this is like a story that came out in like the 80s or something like this. So this is a while ago.
Fair enough. Dale's going climbing by the looks of his nose. All right, don't fall. See you when you get back, or next week if you're late.
Something like this with shiny chiseled metal, maybe?
Okay, now as soon as Dale leaves, I'll take the pool. I'll take the pool on whether or not he's going to fall off.
Oh, no. I'm not betting.
I know that's
I'm not putting any money down on that.
It's really not that dangerous.
You're going to take a video, aren't you?
I'm going to go up and do the hangout while I'm climbing.
We got to see it live.
Holy smokes, that would be crazy. Wait, how high are you going this time?
I'm going to go within the city, so we have smaller towers in the city. This one, I'll probably be up, I'll go around 200 feet. And but just give you an example of what all the gear is and how it works. And when you explain it without doing it, it's really complicated, but when I show you what's going on, there's nothing to it. It's like, okay, it's all really practical. So I'll sign off for a bit. I'll be back in about 25 minutes.
All right, Dale, that's really exciting. That's totally awesome.
We have someone in the chat area. We have Jani in there. We have Keith. First time I've seen him, and Of course, I wanted to keep track of what's happening in the Hangout, but when I talk, Google all of a sudden decides I want to look up something. I got my little stupid iPad, and all of a sudden I look down and I'm out of the chat area. What the heck is going on? I don't know. Now, Keith, you're in the chat area. Hello, Keith. I'll get back to you at some point. Pamela, we can talk a little about our pre-show discussion on humans and extinction. In this case,
I looked it up. And it didn't happen today. I don't know why. I was going to say, well, what we were discussing beforehand was we both saw a post by mutual friends on Facebook saying that the black rhino had just become extinct or something. That's not true. It became extinct last year. So, but we were just talking about extinction, and I was saying that it's one thing for a species to become extinct of its own accord. For examples we've talked about previously, koalas only eat eucalyptus leaves. They are destined for extinction at some point or another. I'm sorry.
And they all have koala gonorrhea.
Chlamydia, yeah.
Chlamydia, sorry for all of you with, sorry for the gonorrhea community. Or the koala community. I don't know.
But I mean, what I'm saying is that that's going to happen one way or another at some point without human interference. If pandas refuse to have sex with each other, they're going to go extinct one way or another. It's nothing to do with us. But when a rhinoceros species goes extinct because we're poaching them for their horns and stuff, that's different. Whereas Ed was saying previously that that's just all part of it.
By we,
not you and I.
The Chinese.
Humans. Oh, but...
Is it Japanese? I mean, it's like an Asian false belief system that ground rhino horn is an aphrodisiac. It's not like I've never seen anybody in the United States going, psst, hey, you want some ground rhino horn? I got some. Like, that just doesn't happen. Let's just call it like it is.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I don't have that information on hand, so I wouldn't say that. No, but I mean,
I'm going to Google it. I wonder what Google will say. I wonder what Wikipedia will say. I'm going to
if you can look up a bit. But just for example, I mean, I don't have them now, but I remember my my grandmother, had these little wooden elephants figurines when I was a kid in her house, and the tusks on the wooden elephants were made out of real tusks. Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's
I know. But I know. They're like 100 years old, and she died when I was 6. I can't go and lecture her now about this. But so it's not. It's the consumer, whomever is buying it, is just as bad as the poacher. So that's why I'm reluctant to say that it's a certain person. But what Ed was saying before was that human interference like that is no different because we're all part of the same thing, and I think it is different because we're the first species in the known history of anywhere that where we can consciously alter our environment, and we do environmental impact studies, and we know what building a dam is going to do and things like that. So anyway, if you want to say what you were saying before, Ed.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, we're part of nature. Anything you talk about, any other species that being a part of nature. Be it the beaver building its little dam, and now the water comes in and floods an area. You got a little pond. Some species die away. Other species, come into the little pond, little fish or whatever. The beaver is altering the environment. We alter the environment. There may be a difference in scale, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just a species that alters the environment and has an effect, and that effect causes some species to be going extinct, and others it helps.
Okay, well, you picked a bad one in picking on the beaver, because when the beaver.
I'm a big fan of beavers.
I love beaver too. So when the beaver creates its little dam, it creates basically a larger ecosystem that attracts a lot of birds and other animals, and the water is still oxygenated, so the fish can thrive and lay eggs there. It creates makes a positive impact on the ecosystem. When humans create a dam, it limits what can live there. The water becomes largely deoxygenated, and it actually reduces the amount of life that can live in that large body of water behind a dam. So there's a major difference. When a beaver creates its dam, it creates a mini wetland that attracts a lot of other species that can use it for food, reproduction, and the rest of it. And not that that's not like the beaver's plan necessarily, but that's sort of the web of nature that the beaver lives in, that it actually creates a positive impact on its, which may be why the beaver's here. Look, think about it. If the beaver created a dam that killed off all the fish that could go up and down the river, and limited amount of creatures that could reproduce there, it would have less of its own resources to pull from, and the beaver would be extinct. We wouldn't even know what a beaver was. We'd be living in a beaver-free society. Because the beaver's actions have that positive impact on its local ecology, we had enough beavers in this country and in Canada to actually be the chosen form of currency for the early settlers and pioneers moving west. I mean, there was a point when you think Silicon Valley has rich people, beaver trappers were some of the wealthiest people this nation first had because of its value here and abroad.
Yeah, but Justin, you're talking about a value judgment on the result. I'm talking about the process.
No.
I'm talking about, for instance, worms change the environment, and termites change the environment, and we change the environment.
Yeah,
we are just another.
Here's my argument to that. And I agree with you. If you look at it as just altering the environment, it's just altering the environment. But the difference is evolution of changing the environment and all these other species. Those who change their environment to the negative, we do not see in abundance on this planet. Those whose changes to their environment were a positive, not just for other creatures, but for themselves, because it's sort of like the Ayn Randian objectivist principle that if you can create more wealth than you consume, you've had this positive impact. And most of those species that we just take for granted as being on the planet and changing the environment went through, all of evolution to where they're producing more environmental wealth than they're consuming, in a sense. They're all contributing and kicking in. Those who are such a drain on their community. It's an old, an old Native American saying that the frog doesn't drain the pond it lives in, something of that nature. But there is, there's clams with this shellfish of some sort who would so massively reproduce at the bottom of a lake that they would create a ecological downfall where they would all die off.
Yeah, but that's self-interest. I agree that when we look at, for instance, any species, and we've changed the environment, and now we suddenly discover that there's a species that is going to go extinct. Okay, what should we do? The first question would be, okay, is it in our own self-interest? Does the fact that you have a species going extinct tell us that this environment is changing, and now we look at it from our standpoint? Is it in our own self-interest to change how we're altering the environment? I don't go along with necessarily trying to save that species that's going extinct. I do go along with the idea of, let's take a look at what we're doing to the environment based on self-interest. So we were talking about that rhino horn business. It's terrible. I've got an emotional brain, a human brain. I think that's terrible. I wish we could reverse it. I would like to see, I don't know, some way if we could go after the people. Not going to do any good to go after the poachers. They're just trying to make a living. They got to feed their families, right? It's the people in other places that are willing to pay thousands of dollars for rhino horn dust or something because they think it's an aphrodisiac. If we could go after those people, if they consumed the rhino horn and they became infertile, that would be payback. That I'd go along with. But the basic thing is self-interest. Self-interest should be the primary driver, not necessarily being empathetic and trying to save this particular species because we feel bad.
This is PBS Nature. All five of the world's diverse species of rhinoceros have been brought to the edge of extinction because of human appetite for their distinctive horns. They've been prized for tens of centuries for the beautiful translucent color when carved and their supposed healing properties. In the Middle East, country of Yemen, the horn continues to be coveted by Muslim men, even though imports were banned in 1982. The material, whose luster increases with age, is used for the handles of curved daggers called jambia, which are presented to Yemeni boys at age 12. Jambia are considered a sign of manhood and devotion to the Muslim religion and are used for personal defense-ish sort of things. They place such a great value on the dagger handles that they are commonly studded with jewels. In China, the ornamental use of rhino horns dates back to the 7th century AD. Over the centuries, rhino horns have been carved into ceremonial cups, as well as buttons, belt buckles, hairpins, and paperweights. So, you're talking about, and Chinese medicinal use. The horn is used to cure snake bites, hallucinations, typhoid headaches, carbuncles, vomiting, food poisoning, and devil possession. It is not, however, as commonly believed, prescribed as an aphrodisiac. So I was wrong. It is not the Chinese use or desire for an aphrodisiac. It's hairpins and buttons.
Okay, you're about to say something, Pamela.
Yeah. Generally, the Chinese are atheists. Why would they need help with devil possessions?
Well, that's a great question. I have no idea.
Look, I'm seriously confused. This is my very confused face.
I think the oldest religion, I don't even know if you call it a religion, or the oldest holy books is that I Ching thing that talks about balances somehow in nature. And I don't know how exactly it works, but it has to do with a balance in nature. And maybe karma along the same lines.
The Chinese are atheists.
Period. No, not traditional. Chinese are not. In fact, the emperor was a god.
No, but now, like they're saying that this is what they use these horns for, which is why the rhino's gone extinct. And yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of Chinese who still hold on to their traditional beliefs. In fact, I read that the country with the fastest growing population of evangelical Christians is China.
Oh,
I would have assumed South Korea, honestly. But interesting.
I can say I want to report from the chat area. 3 thumbs down for Ed, I think. So I'm not convincing anybody. I'm not winning any converts over here.
What, with your poaching of rhinos? What? Ed's not poaching them. He's just saying it's by revolution.
I'm saying self-interest. I'm exaggerating, of course, but I'm saying the basic thing is self-interest. And okay, let's say you've got that. What is that puppy fish or something that had a species and it was a little cave or something, and somebody wanted to put up, I don't know, it was a dam or a nuclear power plant or something, and the government wouldn't do them because it meant that you had to, this little cave that had this one little population, they would have gone extinct. And to me, I would say that's not the right question. There's again, I would say self-interest rules, and goodbye little puppies if it means little fish pups.
Well, I guess, and I guess I would maybe just say I'd agree with you on that one instance. When you create a law, it's a mechanism. It's going to work every time the same way, or it won't work at all. And so you would have to say that then, therefore, every endangered species by a commercial enterprise would be the same self-interest clause. You know, and that's, I think that's part of why when you see those highlighted, like there was some story about, well, they needed to reduce the pumping flow and the waters going to irrigation in California because there was this fish that was the feeder fish for bigger fish that if it kept getting caught in the suction at certain volumes, like it would die off. So those who are against, you know, the lowering of the volume of water were like, it's all about this fish that's only this big. Well, actually, it's about the whole food chain. You know, actually, you know, and so there's a bigger argument, but you could always point to that one species that seems irrelevant and say, hey, we don't need that in the food chain or in the tree of life. But once you start doing that, there's nothing there, therefore, different legally between that cave guppy fish, that small river minnow, and preserving the wolf or the bison or the rhino or anything else. Slippery slope, Ed. Slippery slope.
All right. No. Trying to.
Oh, and you've muted yourself. Ed, unmute yourself. I'll be right back. I gotta go top off my sound. That sounds.
Everybody's silent. We can't have silence here. I will have to vamp. I will vamp. I will wait before I go on to the next story.
I can't make too much noise. I'll wake the baby.
Okay. Okay, just let me finish my attempt at a sentence here in the chat area.
Okay.
I'm being told that in the YouTube channel, somebody has posted a comment. I don't see it. Sorry, audience. All right. Let's go on. Go on to the next story. We're talking, once again, because we're talking about survival of the species. Now, in this particular case, we're talking about a variety of turtle. And there's only 4 individuals left. So you could say this is maybe natural, a case of natural evolutionary extinction. And we got a babe over there doing something. I don't want to post that. We'll go with the picture. Come on. In any event, okay. We're talking about normally a single, I want to skip that. We've got 2 soft-shell turtles. The Yangtze giant soft-shell turtle. Only one single mated couple of this species remains anywhere in the world. These 2 massive turtles, and I don't know how big they are, but they're hundreds of pounds. Each is estimated at more than a century old, and they have lived together in China's zoo since 2008. There's 2 other males that live in Vietnam. Although they have engaged in mating several times over the last few years, the female has never laid fertile eggs. No one knows how long these 2 turtles will live, but time is obviously of the essence. So with the clock ticking, scientists set out to find out why fertilization wasn't occurring. First, they had to find out whether the male was producing viable sperm. That was challenging in itself. I'm not going to go into too much detail how they did it. There's references to turkey basters here and stuff, so I'm going to bypass that. So that what they sedated the animal and used, well, risky procedures. But they did it because we're talking about a species clearly going extinct, only 4 of them left, and maybe if they can get the female to produce viable eggs, you could see a rebirth of the species. What they discovered when they put the turtle to sleep was that it had a damaged sex organs. And they believe this might have been caused by a fight with another male decades ago when males were still around. The damage wasn't severe enough to prevent copulation, but it is enough to block insemination. Once they found this out, they artificially inseminated the female. But now they have to wait. The female is expected to lay a clutch of eggs, as many as 60 eggs, in a few weeks. Then they'll find out if they're fertile. And many reptiles have a change in the appearance of an egg called handling or chalking when they are fertile in the early stages of incubation. So they'll be able to tell fairly easily, fairly quickly, whether or not the eggs are fertile. Then they have to wait for them to hatch. Chances are good the species will actually be saved if they can find 60 new fertile baby turtles hatching from these eggs. They have a shot at building a new population. The gene pool will obviously be small, but having babies would be a very good step. Without babies, there is no hope. And then the other 2 males could conceivably be called into action to diversify the gene pool, because the female can lay several clutches of eggs a year. So that I will end the story there. So there's hope for this particular variety of turtle. Why do it?
Because they've been hunted to this point by humans.
Well, one thing is we are emotional. And a story like this appeals to our emotions. So even though it's not specifically in our self-interest to try and save the species when there's only 4 and only 1 female left, I can see an economic gain. I can see the zoo in China. Perhaps, we have to save the panda. Now you can do the same thing with this particular breed of turtle. Save the turtles. Could be an income generator. There's self-interest. But I recognize we're emotional animals and we're going to do sort of stuff just because we want to. Some people want to kill them and destroy them, and some people want to save them.
Well, it's just trying to make up for doing this to them in the first place. As I said, to me anyway, it's one thing to be, hunted to extinction by humans, and yes, we have a responsibility to try and, rectify what we have done. Whereas if you've got animals that just won't reproduce no matter what anyone does, like the pandas who seem reluctant to have sex, then there's not really much we can do about that.
No. All right. I will move on to another story. This one talks about human survival. It's interesting. It deals with prenatal tests. Mm-hmm. And what this group of researchers have found, normally, you've had the prenatal test done, I believe, Pamela. I don't know exactly that much about it, but and Dale is back, but I don't. Maybe he's putting on his climbing suits. I don't know.
Hey, can you hear me? Okay.
We can hear you. Are we getting a demonstration?
Yeah. So I'm gonna put on my gear, and if you guys are ready for this, and I'll explain kind of what I'm doing. Give a better shot here. Okay, so first thing, with the harnessing system and everything, a belt is usually a no-no to wear underneath, because if you wear a belt, the metal kind of wears away at the harness, if you know what I mean, and your harness could eventually give way. So the belt comes off.
I hope you're not tricking us. Is this going to turn in?
All right, so the next piece. Lots of little gadgets and stuff, but the next thing is my boots. So there's a climbing boot, and this is probably the most important piece of equipment because there's a chunk of metal in the bottom of this boot, or some sort of hard composite. It's something non-electrical, but basically what it does when you're climbing on steel structures for a long period of time, if you were to wear runners or something like that, you'd get really sore feet. So it's really nice to have that extra support. The other thing is these are electrical rated, so if there's something that can give you a little bit of a zap, these kind of keep you away from ground. So the voltage, the current doesn't pass through your body. This kind of isolates you from ground a little bit. So I'm going to put those on. It's going to get a little boring.
Come on, Dale, you can do better than that. You can throw some sexy stripper music in or something. I don't know.
Well, you put the music on. I'm tied up. Or I will be tied up. What were you guys talking about?
We were just about to talk about antenatal testing, which we will do soon, after.
Okay. Well, believe it or not, it'll take me a few minutes to gear up. So all of our equipment has to be inspected before and after every climb. So we're actually trained on what to look for. So a good example, and I'll show you here when I pull out my harness. So the harness I'm going to be using today is a rescue harness. And what makes it a rescue harness is basically I can attach somebody to my harness if I have to pull them off a tower, so it can sustain that extra load, that extra weight. Other than that, it's the same as a normal harness, just a little bit more comfortable. So I'm going to slip that on. So between the feet, I start there and tighten up around the stomach. And again, that tightens up right where my belt was. So the belt's not a good idea because of that steel there. The next point is just the legs. So there's a little bit of a clip here. And on this clip, there's a lock. You have to move this little tab in the lock position so it doesn't come undone. And basically you just make sure it's nice and tight, nice and snug. Go to the next one. This particular harness has a system on it. I don't know if you can see this, but I have to touch a tab on the top and the bottom in order to basically release it like that. So if I actually hit only one tab, it wouldn't come off. So anyways, those are locked up. Good to go.
Sorry, I was playing a little Macho Man YMCA music on the background. Go ahead.
Perfect. All right, so now some of the gear. All right, the next thing I have to do is there's something, this is called a double lanyard system. And what this is they're basically hooks. And if I have to do a manual climb and come off the shuttle, I hook on one at a time, basically put it over a tower member, release it, and then I use the next one. So there's always one point of contact on the tower as I'm climbing, right? So there's always one hook on there. So what I have to do is
how long can it take you using that process to climb, let's say, 200 feet?
How long will it take? From when I'm at the bottom of the tower, or just when I'm starting to gear up and check all my equipment?
No, I mean when you start the actual climbing. Using those things you talked about, how important it was to go slowly, and looking at them, I could see that would be a slow process.
Yeah, like everything, like we inspect everything, and when you look closely, you can see the stitching. And basically, if you see that stitching, and that's in my harness too, there's a type of stitching. If there's 2 stitches that are out in a row, we throw away the system. So when we're inspecting the stuff, that's, you know, part of what we're looking for is there 2 stitches, one after the other, that are in there. So basically what this system is this is a fall arrest system. And if you look, there's a little window on the side. What happens is if I fall from the tower, this is that system I was talking about, my descent. When you fall 15 feet or more, you can have something with your organs. Basically, we were talking about that before, Ed, where you get something called organ shear. And you see it in car accidents where the body suddenly stops, but the organs inside your body keep moving, and they tend to shear off. So what this fall arrest system does is if I do fall, it slows my descent. So it's a shock absorber, and it slows me down. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tail on, and there's a hook that I have to put on here, and it comes onto my dorsal part of my vest, and I go on, and I hook it on myself so I can see it, because sometimes you get something called a phantom connection where it feels like it's hooked on, but it's not really, and then that wouldn't do squat to save you if you fell. So that's on there nice and secure, don't have to worry about it. Next
Shouldn't you have a second person checking for, I think of parachutes. People are double checking, you check it and then somebody else checks it.
Yeah, engineer here that will look at my whole system before I go out, and they're watching me climb, that sort of thing. Plus we have a protocol of who to call, and generally the 911 is called last because the fire department would come out, and they're not as equipped to take people off towers as kind of the tower workers. So we all do high angle rescue training, that sort of thing, and help each other if something happens. If the fire department had to go up, they could. It would just be a little bit slower, that's all, because they don't have the same gear. But I'm going to slip this on. So now I have this, and this attaches to my waist. So there's a carabiner on here. I'm going to do that up. All right, so now that's on there. I've got these hooks, so I got to do something with them, so I'm going to get rid of them. I'm just going to hook them onto the side of this harness system so that they're out of the way and to the side. The next thing, I have a little baggie that I take up with me, and there's just a few odds and ends in it, a couple basic tools, but the main one is we always carry these picker lines, they're called. And the picker line, basically what it does is, if I have to help out my buddy or something, the picker line attaches to me, I attach the other end to her or him, and then help lower them down if we have to rappel. So I got a picker line in there. I put in a few basic tools, a knife, some pliers, some really sharp scissors. So just a few really basic things. I also slipped my cell phone in there because it's a handy place to put it. So I just strap that on to my leg. And again, I don't always pack everything and take everything up with me, but this kind of just gives you kind of the full gamut of what's taken up. So this just basically clips on some buttons on the back. Snap together. All right. Okay, next piece. So we have some gadgets here I'm not going to use today because I'm not going to rappel, but this is basic rappelling gear. I don't know if you can see it. So there's two systems here. This is kind of basically, let me just open this carabiner, show you what it does. I'm not going to use any rope today because I'm just going to climb and not rappel, but basically it's like any other climbing system. You take your rope and you shove it so that the anchor point comes underneath from your rope, and then the other part comes out the top, and it's a descender. So I can control my descent with this lever. So I can increase, decrease the speed, I can lock it up, and have a lot of control as I rappel. Now, that's on a main rope. We also have to have backup ropes, and on that one, it's a simpler system. It's a locking cam. Basically, the rope comes into this area here, and what happens is if you go past, a certain speed, if you were going into free fall, this locks up and basically stops you before you can start to accelerate. And it stops you soon enough before you can get like organ shear or anything like that. So, and that's on a separate rope, a separate system. But I won't be using those today, so I'm not going to rappel. The other thing is I'm using these large carabiners. These are very, very handy. I use these large ones just for if I'm in a position on the tower where I just quickly need to latch onto something for safety. I always keep one right here in my center so that I can latch on, basically, get onto the tower, and then I'm safe, right? So if we're moving around. I take a whole bunch of these little tiny carabiners. So this one, I don't know if you can see it, it has a little button. So in order to open the carabiner, you have to depress the button to get it open. It's another extra safety. You're working on steel all the time. So if these were just to open without that button, your system could fail and you could go into a free fall. So I got these handy, they're a little bit annoying, but I've got these handy buttons that you have to press before the carabiner will open. Another one of these large hooks, just for utility. I usually carry it on my side, just for whatever comes. Next thing is, it's called a work positioning system. And what this is it's a rope attached to two carabiners, and I can control how much rope is let out. And when you start to work at a certain altitude or height, you'll wrap this onto a tower member or whatever's safe, whatever you can anchor onto. You're essentially, it's a fancy way of tying yourself into something. So basically, I just carry this on my side until I get to the desired height. And when I get to that height, I can use it to tie off, and it's quite comfortable too. The other thing is, this is great for safety because if I fall and I'm hanging and I can't basically recover, I only have about 18 minutes from when I fall, because the blood in my legs will get cut off from oxygen, right? Because it'll be so tight after a fall. So we also use these ropes, like I hold it like a skipping rope, and I'll attach it to my other mid-level harness, and I'll stand on it. And what that does is it helps release the pressure from here so that I can get oxygen down into my legs. So something very typical, if you were to fall like that, as soon as you get to the ground, typically they want to put you into the recovery position with your legs up. In this case, with suspension trauma, you don't want to do that. If a climber is suspended up there for a long period of time, you got no oxygen in the legs. So typically what you want to do is actually elevate their heart and their head and keep the legs down. And you do that for about a 30 to 45 minute period while you're slowly oxygenating the blood in your legs. Because if you were to suddenly tip that unoxygenated blood, and that goes to your heart. It can cause heart issues. So it's kind of the opposite of what you generally do for a recovery position. So the next gadget, this is kind of a weird one, and I'll show you how these work as I get on the tower. But this is just called a shuttle, a Trilon shuttle. And on a tower member, this will actually fit into the center of the ladder. So on the center of the ladder, there's this bar that this attaches to, and it can't come off. The only place it can come off from that ladder is at the very bottom. So this thing rides along the top, and I'm tied into the ladder, and I actually tie in. I'll take this, and I'll put it right up here at center mass, and this attaches me to the tower as I'm climbing up. So while I'm on the ladder, this shuttle kind of slides with me up and down. It's good and bad. I'll show you a place where we have some tower work to do where it actually gets stuck. And because the tower, there's joints, right? You don't have one continuous piece going up and down. Sometimes because of weathering, it can move, and sometimes these things can get stuck. And that's why you have all these manual systems, so that if you have to free climb manually, you still can do it with being tied on 100%. So that's that stuff. There's a few other gadgets, like this is the equivalent device to that last one, except this is for, you can use it for a steel line. So if you have a steel threaded line, you can ride up and down it as well, and that's the type of gadget that you'd use. So next piece, climbing towers, you always have to worry about radiation. So this is a radiation monitor, and it's very simple. It just tells me when I'm in an area that I'm in danger, and there's some green, orange, and red LEDs. If I flip that on, it goes through a self-test. Okay, so it's done its self-test, the batteries are good, everything's good to go. I'll take this and I hook it near my head, because as I'm climbing up, I want to know by my head if I'm climbing into a radiated zone. That way it's kind of up here nice and high, if you can see it. The other thing is I can kind of just look to the side and I can still see the LEDs here, so it's all good.
Do you register? Have you ever registered radiation in any of your climbs?
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
So
Yeah,
what's the source?
Microwave dishes, transmitters, FM arrays, all sorts of different things. Cell phones aren't that dangerous. FM arrays are really concerning because you're a closer match to the antenna, to the frequency and the wavelength. So the closer your body is to a match to the wavelength that they're transmitting, the more the body can absorb of that radiation.
So do you have an opportunity then while you're climbing to turn it off, or is it just like, just so you know, you're now getting irradiated?
Well, when you climb the zone, the amount of time is very, very important, as well as the amount of radiation. So what can happen, for instance, is a lot of times we don't turn off microwave dishes because they're very directional. But sometimes there can be a hole in the line, there can be a problem with a coupler, there can be all sorts of issues. But most of the time it's 100% safe. When you climb into a radiated zone, I might just see some green lights. And basically, it's measured in watts per centimeter squared, the absorption rate. It's called the specific absorption rate. And it has to do with the amount of time that you're radiated, the frequency you're radiated, and like I said, the length of time. So it doesn't mean you're going to die if you get radiated, but it's all about the dose and length of dose. But generally, most times I'll climb up and down, and there's some radiation there, and my meter will go up a bit, and I'll just kind of watch it. And we also have people on the ground that can quickly turn off these transmission systems if there's an issue. So you want somebody competent enough that understands the equipment on the ground that you can radio down to them and say, hey, buddy, we need to turn this off, or you need to turn off these two radios to create kind of a safe haven or a safe place for me on the tower. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go offline for a bit because I'll have to get up to the base of the tower. And once I'm up there, when I start my climb, I'll kind of just go up a couple steps and show you how I'm attaching to the tower. While I'm climbing, I won't be able to talk on the phone, so I'll turn it off again. But then when I get hooked up to a place where I'm safe again, then I'll join back in and chat, because I'll get nice and comfy up there once I'm all hooked up.
About how much, what's the weight of the equipment you're carrying?
This is bare bones without any of the stuff you need to fix stuff with. It's about 45 pounds, and then you're carrying stuff like wrenches and whatever you need to do the repair. Lots of times you're carrying, if you're doing rope.
So you're expanding a lot of energy, it seems.
Yeah, so there's 2 bags of rope there, and there's 400 feet in each bag. Mm-hmm. So I can actually rappel if we did it during the day. You can't really see me rappelling now, but there's basically, I don't know if you can see it, there's about 400 feet of rope in there. Plus you have a backup line, which is, surprise, surprise, it's the color red. Red like blood. So yeah, but it gets very heavy, right? So the higher you climb with those 2 ropes, every step you take, there's more weight, right?
Do you have to bring, I mean, I'm thinking in terms of nourishment or running out of energy. I don't know how long you're up there, but that's got to be a lot of calories when you're climbing, particularly slowly.
Yeah, I eat like a pig. Before I go up, I eat a lot. I don't take anything with me other than, maybe a little bar or something once in a while.
About how long would you typically be up there?
Anywhere from, it depends on the fix. The longest I've been up is like, you're up for like a full working day. It's like going on the job. Then
wow.
You come down. But sometimes it's a small job, like I have to go to a tower site next week, and it's only about 40 feet up that I need to go because someone vandalized the anti-climb, which is a device that keeps people off the tower, so it needs to be repaired, and I'm going to go and do that. So my helmet basically has a little light on the top. I also am outfitted for a GoPro. And the GoPro goes on the top. What that's for is if we're doing inspections, I record the whole climb so that when I get back down on the ground, you can go through piece by piece and see basically and everything in high definition as to any problems that might be up there. The other thing, helmet, I'm always banging my head, that's for sure. The other thing is just safety glasses. You do bang into a lot of stuff all the time because you're carrying so much stuff, and you're a lot larger than you usually are, that's for sure. So just some safety glasses. I made a little bit of a rope, and it's for my with some little tiny carabiners, and that's for my cell phone because I get the dropsies a lot, and I have a little tiny loop that goes on my cell phone, so I'll attach that. And then I'll attach this to me somewhere in this mess. And yeah, so I'll get into position. And when I get to the base of the tower, it'll take me about 10 minutes to get there. And then I'll reattach to the Hangout. And we'll go through Climbing 101.
Okay.
Okay,
great.
See you guys in a bit.
See you.
Yeah, that's hardcore. That's heavier than I expected it to be.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you too. I mean, also because what is it, about 40, 45 pounds? That's about 20 to 25 kilograms.
And you're climbing. It's not like you're walking. You're climbing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gold upper.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking that's about, with Chelsea and her stroller, that's about twice that. Because I lift her in her stroller up and down stairs and on and off buses and, you know, things like that. But that's only for like seconds at a time. So double that weight, heading up. Yeah, stuff that. I don't want to do that. At first I was thinking, gee, that looks like fun. No. That looks like really hard work. I'll just stay home and watch Dale do it.
I've never done any of that. I mean, I've carried a 50-pound pack in the military. The longest, we had a forced march, was 25 miles. But that's not climbing up. And that's like taking breaks. That's actually like climbing up, hanging there, doing stuff. Wow. You've got to be in fantastic shape.
Yeah. Yeah, the 40-pound pack kind of. I mean, granted, it sounds like 38 pounds of stuff that you need to be keeping you connected to the tower. So, you know, my biggest thing though is I feel like I would skip steps. I feel like I'd be like, I got this. I don't need to be connected 3 ways to the tower. 2 will do. You know what? I'm confident enough I could stay connected with 1 thing to the tower. Like, I would skip a step. I would leave a piece of equipment behind. I would be shearing my organs after a 30-foot free fall. Like, whew.
No, that. I mean, he's had a lot of training.
Yeah. What's funny though is, I would have the confidence in myself to free climb it. I would only get intimidated. I'm only intimidated by this by the amount of safety equipment. This is what's terrified me. The amount of safety equipment that he's bringing now terrifies me, whereas if you were just like, hey, let's climb 200 feet up this tower, I'd be like, I could do that, no problem. Right? I see all the safety equipment. I'm like, ooh. There have been lessons learned in the past from this activity that I just sort of glossed over and thinking that I could just climb up this tower.
And you got radiation. Not only are you talking about climbing, you got radiation. Huh.
I guess I would pose that with the microwave tower. I didn't realize the RF and everything else was so resonant frequencying my body that it would be dangerous. But I would assume that if I'm on the tower, all the dangerous stuff is turned off. Like that's like somebody flipped the switch right at the bottom before I started ascending. Right? I assumed that. I had no idea this is a completely live tower that's being worked on. Like, you know, when they send out the, we are having technical difficulties, we'll be back with you shortly. That's like when I assumed he's making the ascent, right?
They have to turn off, we were talking earlier about the radio stations, and a problem is they have to turn off the radio station equipment, so the radio stations can't transmit. That's why they prefer to do it at night. As opposed to during, if you do it during the day and you turn off the radio stations, they get cranky.
Yeah, and you know, like radio stations often have multiple towers. So if there's a problem in one, yeah, I may not be playing, you know, I may not be broadcasting as strong a signal in the valley, but because the tower in the foothills is still working fine, they're all getting the show just as la-di-da like they always did. So, you know, I could sort of picture it as a reduction in signal if you're shutting down a tower. But yeah, no, you're right. It's a big ordeal. KDVS even, I mean, I think we've got 2 towers now, but there was a time when we only had, I think, 1. Maybe we've got 3. I don't know. I really don't. I don't pay attention to the inner workings. But we added a new tower pretty recently. It's got a great range, the towers that we do have. But when we've had to do tower maintenance, it was a big deal. Like, literally the radio station ground to a halt for a 6 or 12-hour period where we were just off the air.
I have a much greater
if people weren't
appreciation of
listening
anybody
right
who has
before
to
you go
do
off the
that
air,
for a
then
living.
your fear is that they now think the radio station doesn't exist because for 6, 12, 24 hours there was nothing. Oh, I guess they're done. Take them off of the favorite station, whatever presets.
Yeah, I had a friend we're talking about in the 70s, and he worked for the electrical company, and that's what he did. But he wasn't climbing as high as Dale is. But the equipment he's got to carry, I'm back to that. Man. And he has to fix stuff when he gets up there.
So, though, although this is a superpower, if Dale joins us on Science Island, we can be as rural as we care to be, and can, as a sweetener for the we'll get paid by allowing a broadcaster, cell or radio or what have you tower to be built on our land. We also got the guy who could fix it if something goes wrong. You won't have to send out a special envoy. We've got a professional at base camp who can take care of the problem for you.
You know, if we're on Science Island, we got to have a Wi-Fi. We got to have Wi-Fi. I would rather put up with no water than have Wi-Fi.
Right.
What do you actually need to be able to have that receive Wi-Fi signals in a remote location, let's say?
Okay. So two things. First of all, the Wi-Fi is local. The Wi-Fi is once you've got internet running to your house, the Wi-Fi is what you broadcast it so you can do it wirelessly. To get the internet in, it's very simple. If you have sky above
was trying to say something there.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say not everywhere. That's how it is in Australia, and that's how it is in the United States. But in countries like the Philippines and Indonesia, the whole town, everything is Wi-Fi. So instead of having it come to your house and Wi-Fi out within your house, it comes to the city and it Wi-Fi's out from there.
So the key to it is, as long as you have sky above you, you can get about a DSL download speed. Right? Not a problem. Satellite internet works really well. You can live stream this via a satellite. The hard part is there's not an easy upload to satellite. So none of us could be broadcasting now via a satellite internet alone. You need it's the upload where you're so like we could do Science Island, but it would always chats on Science Island, right? But we would have to just record them on the intranet and record them and then upload them very slowly via like a phone type connection, which, you know, depending on what we install and what's even available to get to. The other one, though, is actually what Dale's talking about with the microwave. If you can get a line of sight on another microwave dish, there's your upload. There's where you can start to get back into decent speed upload internet. So we'll be able to view the world from Science Island. We may not be able to participate.
I video Skype with a friend in Indonesia on a couple of times, and the upload's fine. It can, it fluctuates. It can get a bit pixelated and everything, but then that's only for a second, and then it goes back to like this.
But now was this? Did she have microwave? Did she have phone for the upload? What was the upload?
So it's the Wi-Fi out to like it comes to the city and then it Wi-Fi out. So you just have to be able to receive.
Right. But the Wi-Fi isn't the problem. What I'm talking about is how is it coming to the city? Is that satellite?
I don't know.
Right. So my point is with the satellite is like satellite you can put anywhere and it can download the internet just fine. When you're talking about uploading back, Wi-Fi is okay. They've put Wi-Fi transmitters throughout the city. That's great. But if their main source is Comcast or something, right? If they have it cabled into that city, then it's really high-speed internet coming into the city to feed all of those Wi-Fi transponders.
Find out. I will send a message right now and be able to tell you.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't have to go far from Davis. I went a couple miles from where I am now, and was at this rural farmhouse that had the satellite internet, and you could download everything, but I couldn't have done the show from there. Could never have done the show from there because the upload was very limited at that time. It was through the phone that you were uploading. Plus, they also capped the amount of upload that you could do. Oh, maybe it did. I don't know how it worked exactly, but it was exceedingly limited in comparison to the download speed. It was so drastically, dramatically limited. But yeah, we'll be able to, no matter where we go, we'll be able to view the world internet from that location. If we're still doing media output, those will all probably need to be pre-recorded and then uploaded, probably from some internet cafe in a somewhat neighboring town or village. Or
what would we need? I mean, we want to broadcast to the world. Want to make it live. We would need a studio. What kind of equipment would we need?
What we already have.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we don't.
Nothing that's special.
Studio is this day and age has gotten so easy to put together. I mean, literally, I've got this mixer here that is unnecessary even for the job of one person. The computer can handle most of the mixing and the recording, and it's pretty much all there. With the equipment that just TWIS has being applied, you have a studio that would have rivaled, anything that was recording music in like the 70s, 80s, 60s, and even a lot of the 90s. I mean, it's super powerful, capable, within a computer and a mixer and a couple of mics. Done. And it would help if there wasn't a train going by to unillustrate my point. Soundproofing is one thing that I haven't invested in yet, that I may someday.
Dale, I don't know. I saw a cell phone thing. I don't know if you can broadcast or you can hear us yet.
Oh, I see all kinds of cable-y stuff.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, first step, I'm at the base of the tower. It's kind of hard to shoot the lights on my head, but do you see this this piece right here? That's in the middle of the ladder. So this piece hooks on. It just slides onto the bottom. It's important that you get it in the right direction, because otherwise it won't work. So basically that's slid onto there. And that can now move up and down. In order to move up, it'll move freely as it's attached to me, but it won't come down because there's a brake. In order to take the brake off and climb down, I have to put one hand over and tilt this bar up, and then it slides down. So going up is easy. It takes a little bit more energy arm-wise, because you're always holding on with the other arm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach myself to this. Just one second. I'm going to put the phone down. All right. So I'm just attaching. I know you can't see me. You will in a second. So that thing that I just put on the tower, I'm attaching to it. And what I'm doing now is just testing the system. I don't know, can you see me at all? So I have to hold the phone away from me.
Crystal clear and sound coming through.
Okay, so I'm at the bottom of the tower, but I'm hanging off this right now. So you do a kind of a primary test, and I'm just looking at all my gear to make sure everything's locked, right? So I'm looking at my legs. Both are locked. Center strap is locked. Everything's good to go. Feeling good. So, there's kind of the up view. Let me try to point my light a little better. I don't know. It's just kind of straight up.
I don't see no top there.
Yeah, it goes up for a ways.
So Dale, what's the mission today?
The mission is just talking to you guys and climbing up and demystifying it a little bit, hopefully.
Okay.
It's really not that fancy. Okay, so you know what? I'll stay audio only. You'll hear me huffing and puffing a little bit, and I got to put this phone in my back pocket to climb. So once I get to a couple hundred feet, I'll get all safetied and tied off, and then I'll rejoin the conversation with video.
Beautiful.
All right, I got to figure out how to do this with video. Okay, so my video should be gone, I think. You can still hear me though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, phone's.
Now, there's always a question in my back of my mind. I don't see anything there.
Well, I can't hear Dale now, so he was going audio only, but somehow we lost his audio. Now we've got video again. Well, we had video. Dale, if you can hear me, I do not have audio currently. But Jani is showing, I think that's Venom. It could be Deadpool. Wait, no, it's Venom. No, it's
Rocket or something. A Finlandia hero. Finland hero.
Oh, Finland. Oh, yes. Sorry. It's okay. Everybody's taking the same costume. You get the best costume, everybody takes it.
Rendell.
That's just the way it is.
The best.
Rendell.
Have you guys seen Daredevil?
No, I can't. It's
not your thing. Okay.
I have.
Yeah. The difference with Daredevil, number one, he's not a superhero. People beat the crap out of him, and he hurts. You know, he comes away with bruises and stuff. So that's one. It's a much more realistic representation of a guy who's trying to go out and, you know, be the superhero, and he's attacking bad people. Every once in a while, those bad people kick his ass. I mean, he always comes back, but I like it.
Yeah. My new superhero is Ragnar Lothbrok of the Viking series. I mean, I almost now want the main focus of Science Island to be making longboats and pillaging England. I think Jutland is still largely unpopulated and must be very cheap. I think we can go and take some part of Denmark cheaper than we can find land in California, and the Danes will be happier to see us.
Are the Danes ever happy?
Oh, the Danes are always happy. Danes are the huggliest, happiest people you would ever meet.
It's cold there, though, right? See,
not really. Not bad.
I'm in my third of 4 consecutive winters. I'm not getting summer for ages. So after this, I want 4 hot summers in a row.
Oh, come to California. You'll have them in 1 year.
In 1 year.
Yeah, you'll get them in 1 year. Okay, so yeah, Denmark is largely surrounded by sea. It has that whole marine layer thing going on. It gets a little bit cold there, but it's not like Arctic cold.
Mm-hmm.
like put on a jacket. It's probably less cold than the Pacific Northeast, and you know, and it's in that region that still is getting that. I've talked about this before. How like London is as far north as Juneau, Alaska, but London isn't nearly as cold. It's there. It's part of that Atlantic conveyor belt that rolls up there. You know, so they've got farming. Jutland is lots of rocks, though. Lots of rocky. I don't know if there's how much soil there's even in Jutland. But Jutland is that main part of Denmark where nobody lives that's north of Germany. And I think part of why nobody lives there is because it's so close to Germany, and they get enough of the Germans in Bornholm that they could be done with them. But yeah, let's build some longboats. Let's go pillage unsuspecting. You think they were unsuspecting of Viking attacks back in the year 900?
No way.
Imagine their surprise when we show up today, right? Right? They won't see it coming. We'll just show up in the longboats, and we'll be sacking cities and stealing iPhones from people, and they'll be like, this is unbelievable. A longboat showed up, and a bunch of Vikings came out and took all of our stuff.
Let's see. And the over in the chat area, I put down a link to property for sale in Denmark, and I've kind of refined the search to land. What do we got? You can 159. Well, I don't know how much property there is. Valley.
Enough longboat for you. What I saw.
That's a nice one.
That's a nice 249,000.
But is it? It's not in U.S. dollars, right?
Looks like it. Got a dollar sign.
So things have changed. Now, granted, I haven't been to Denmark for 12 years? 10 years? 12 years? Something like that. But when I used to visit Denmark, it was like the land values were insanely cheap. Now, I don't know enough about the regions of Denmark, but land properties on Sealand, which is the tiny island in which Copenhagen and the other 90% of the population of Danes live, is a tiny island just south of Sweden.
What's it called? How do you spell it?
Huh?
How do you spell this? Sealand?
Sealand. That's where everybody already lives. We need Jutland. Jutland. Jutland.
Okay. See.
And it's the biggest swath of land that they have. So it's going to have the most different regions and names and...
Oh, okay, we got a river here.
Oh, yeah.
$275,000.
For the and they give us the river. See, this is what I'm talking about. We get the whole river.
24.38 hectares. That's a little bit less than 24 square miles, maybe, or acres, I should say.
What's a hectare? That's more than an acre, right?
I don't know. It's somewhat equivalent, but.
All right, hang on. I'm going to the Google.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 acres is a hectare or something, or is it 2.25? Yeah, there's a conversion you can do.
That's not bad. Then that's 50 acres of land.
Dale's back.
Yeah, it's back.
Okay, 1 hectare is 2.5 acres.
Okay, so this property, I mean, it is still 250,000 to 275,000, but it's 50 acres of land. It says wildlife. It's got a bushwalk. What the heck a bushwalk is? That's pretty. Let's see. What do we got here?
Okay. Also, when I was in Denmark, there were rumors that they were paying people to live in eastern Sweden. I mean, I could be Svenska. Danska. I prefer to be Danish, but I could be Svenska.
That's not really all that cheap, though.
I have sex in Sweden, though.
Huh?
Because they can, by law, they can take that 10% after that. and you can go to jail for not doing anything wrong.
Wait a sec. What is this about? Okay, talk to me about sex. What are you saying? You're breaking up.
I said you can't have sex in Sweden, though.
Why?
Because their law says that you can have consensual sex, and then someone can take back their consent
Oh,
after.
you're talking about the Julian Assange thing. Look.
No, but that's law in
There was here's how progressive Swedes are towards Swedes, and part of why they were so aggressive is because they had been too hands off when it came to sex and weren't persecuting enough rapists. But a prostitute in Sweden sued because somebody made an appointment that they didn't show up for. And she won, and he had to pay, even though he didn't get to have sex. So it's a very progressive, but at one point was too hands-off when it came to sex, and there was too many reports that rapes were going unprosecuted. At the same time, Julian Assange probably did, I know you like him, but doesn't mean he's perfect, probably did force himself upon somebody without their complete consent.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, probably.
We've got a nice
Whoa,
view from Dale there.
Yeah.
Hello, Dale. Can you hear us?
I can. Sorry, I think I must have my butt connected with a button and cut you guys off.
Don't fall off just because we were talking about sex.
Yeah, we didn't have audio on the ascent. We lost your audio right at the base.
Yeah, my butt somehow deactivated the phone, so it's a big butt.
Butt undialed us.
I butt undialed you. Yeah. So yeah, I'm up here, and so I'm still tethered on to that shuttle. To be nice and safe, I have my loose positioning rope basically, and it ties on my hip to the other side. Plus, I have a third system in place right here. Can you see that? I can't see the camera, so.
Yeah, that was the blue, whatchamacallit?
Yeah, it's a carabiner, and I just have it going on a ladder rail, so I'm actually tied in 3 places right now, plus my primary system, which is my hands, right? So a nice resting position is just kind of arm around the rail. So, there's 4 points of contact, so it's very, very safe.
Yeah, Dale, I was telling the others, the prospect of climbing a 200-foot tower is something that I would, because I love heights, I like to climb, I pre-climbed a bit before. It didn't seem too intimidating to me.
No.
Until you went through the list of safety equipment, because all of those safety checks and equipment pieces told me that other people had tried and failed enough times for them to come up with the multiple layers of security that my whole confidence of, like, I could climb up and then climb down again vanished.
That's very true. I guess all these systems are here for a reason.
They're all there because of somebody else's mistake. And probably, because I know us humans, probably multiple mistakes, multiple times throughout history until somebody could come up with that next layer of failsafe.
Well, Mike in the chat room says this is so cool in capital letters. So.
Yeah, so this is actually a little tower. This one goes up. I'm probably up, I don't know, 200 feet or so right now, just because I'm lazy. But yeah, we've got some in Canada that go 1,400, 1,450, something like that. So it gets way up there, and the tower sways a lot more. So these steel structures move a lot. Even this little structure I'm on, this is a freestanding tower. There's no guy wires holding it up. On a wind, if you get a 15-mile-an-hour, 20-mile-an-hour wind, it's enough to move the tower back and forth. So sometimes I get seasick. And that's a problem for me, because the motion of it kind of makes me ill. So that can be a problem some days. A lot of people don't have that, but I guess I won the genetic lottery, and so I have to be careful what I eat, because when it comes up on the tower, certain things make a real bad mess.
Oof. So you've thrown up on the tower before?
A couple times.
So is there some consolation in, like, okay, gross, ugh, but then looking down, watching it fall, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's I swear a lot because I tend to you don't want people walking about below. I drop a lot of things, so that's why I have. Even my phone is tethered onto me right now. So.
Okay, you mentioned some of them are 1,400 feet high. Does the guy climbing the 1,400-foot high tower have a pee bottle?
No, we just tend to find out where downwind is and kind of hope there's no one.
Okay. At 1,400 feet, with given a 20-mile-an-hour sustained wind, what's your range up there, man? Because that's got to be amazing.
Oh, the drift is awesome. You can watch it just drift for miles. It becomes a yellow cloud. But yeah, it's actually really nice up here, and the reason, like, you're carrying more gear than like a rock climber or whatever, and the reason for that is, like, you're working up here, right? You're not focusing on your climbing. The whole point is to get up here and then start your job. So that's why there's so much gear, so much extra stuff, just so that you can tie off and basically forget about being in a tower and just kind of get your job done.
Also, by the way, anybody who I know who's a professional or semi-professional, meaning they've taught it, they do it, it's their passion, they look for those great spots that are famous worldwide, all of them get injured. No, really. All of them have gotten, like, multiple fractures, like, throughout their climbing career, to where they're not doing it, in a really long-term sustainable way.
Well, when I was learning how to rappel properly, it's actually hard on a tower compared to a building, because remember, there's only, usually on a tower, there's a cross member, a nice solid one that you can land on about every 10 feet, and you got to control your descent good enough that your feet actually land on that cross member, because if your feet don't land there, you end up just kind of slamming into the side of the tower.
Ooh, shin first, right? Oof.
Yeah, and a lot of times I won't bound unless I need to, but yeah, no, it takes a little bit of practice to do, but it's really something anybody can learn. There's a lot of, there's a lot of simple math involved. Just every piece of gear has a rating on it, and so if there's a fall, how many newtons of force can each carabiner withstand? So you got to know what gear you have. If we're doing high angle rescue stuff, pulling other people off, then you got the additional weight of tethering someone onto your body a lot of times. So you have to know your harness system, how many newtons of force it can withstand in free fall, and your free fall is calculated to 15 feet, which is your fall arrest system. So everything from your anchor point, every tiny little bit of gadgetry from your anchor point all the way down to your harness, you have to have an understanding of what it can withstand in case there's a fall. And so then you have to adjust accordingly. So if you're carrying up extra weight or you're helping another human being, you have to know that math. And it's still pretty simple, but you need to know it for sure. So I don't know, pretty nice view. This is downtown Saskatoon.
That's Saskatchewan, right?
It is.
You say Saskatchewan. He says wait, what do you say? Saskatoon?
Saskatoon is the city. Saskatchewan is the province.
Ah, so
Gotcha.
Saskatoon. I had it backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice out here. It's about, it feels about 21, 22 Celsius, so beautiful night.
You posted some pictures of the city, were really spectacular, last week. And as I recall, there's a river or something, rivers around it.
Yeah, there's a river that cuts through the middle of the city, and it's really nice. There's, I don't know, probably 100 kilometers of trail on both sides, just really well developed, and it's beautiful in the summer. So a lot of people spend their time down by the river. They tend to gather there for a lot of different things, a lot of functions every weekend, a lot of festivals.
So this is going to be slightly convoluted, but years ago I had an opportunity to do something called wagon train, where you went from Lake Tahoe down to Placerville, I think it was, in horse-pulled wagons. And we're going down a main interstate road. We're going down the 50, and we're doing it, 20 miles a day for this trip. And you get to see all of the beauty of that wilderness, of that route, in a way that you never see when you actually drive it at 60, 70 miles an hour. It occurs to me that your vantage point of this city is more of that sort of slow-paced, sustained beauty, appreciation, ability to actually take it all in than not only most people get, that even a pilot who's flying over doesn't get for this length of time.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a really unique perspective to be able to take in the city from that vantage point for those prolonged periods of time.
Yeah, it's really good in the summer. In the winter, it sucks bug really hard. It's awful. You're climbing a steel tower, and it's minus 25 degrees Celsius. Yeah, not so great in the winter, but yeah, summer is awesome here. We get really good temperatures. So
yeah,
and,
so unlike most pilots, you never have to fly. Who never have to fly the plane from outside.
That's right.
You do have to pay that penance in exposure to the elements to get the view.
Yeah, like right now, it's really weird. It's like there's nothing behind me, right? Like I'm on a ladder on the outside of the tower, and like if I look behind me, there's nothing. So yeah, that's a weird feeling. It's hard to explain unless you've done it, but it's just sort of a strange thing.
In the pre-show, Dale, you mentioned how you have to really pay attention to the weather. In particular, you don't want to be there when lightning strikes.
Yeah, that's very true. So these towers are basically gigantic lightning rods, and we're always looking at the clouds and cloud formations and weather forecasts, and there's the slightest chance of any sort of lightning in the area, we get down really quick, and it doesn't happen quickly because, like, if you're up 1,400 feet, kind of worst case, that's 3 hours up for me.
So that brings about a question, because I thought of this actually when you were describing the boots and the insulating ability of the boots. When you're making that descent, that all of a sudden the storm ran in, you saw the lightning in the distance, you're halfway down the tower, but now it's getting right on you. It's a fake scenario to plant yourself in. Are you? I figure you're no longer wanting to grip the tower, but are working the what do you call them, carbines, and keeping your boots on the tower, but trying not to actually physically touch it. Is that a possibility? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, you never know when lightning's going to strike, so when to touch. Like, I guess you could do that, but there's so much voltage. Like, air is normally a dielectric where it won't conduct, but it'll go right through you if it hits anywhere near the tower. Even like our fences outside the tower compounds, if you're near a lightning strike near the fence that's not even too close to the tower, it'll knock you on your ass for sure.
Wow.
And maybe kill you. So there's just so much voltage there that it goes through everything. So my boots won't help me. Where my boots will help me is, like, there's a lot of electrical on these towers. I don't know if you can see above me, but there's some dishes and different things up there. You know, all sorts of electronics and stuff. So that's sort of the case where it isolates me from ground if I'm working on some DC circuitry or some AC. At least I have a little bit extra protection. You know, the big thing with these boots though is just comfort, because I'm standing on a rail, and it doesn't hurt my feet. And I tell you, climbing in runners or something without that extra really hard composite is tough. But
so I assume these boots would be extremely uncomfortable to take a jog in, because they're really inflexible. But when you're relying on that strength up on the tower, that's when their rigidity is a benefit.
Yeah, these are all these steel structures too. I mean, having steel-toed boots and you're always bumping and grinding into things and scraping on bolts and different things. So yeah, it's good to have that comfort. I also have a climbing suit for winter, which about the only thing that I can't really control for weathering. Like I can go in some pretty cold weather because of this jumpsuit I have, but the only thing I still have a problem with is my hands. I can't keep my hands warm. So basically what I do is with my climbing gloves, they're very thin, right? So you want to feel what you're touching, sort of thing. You can't have big insulated gloves because then you lose the feeling. But what happens is it gets so cold, you lose the feeling in your hands anyway. So what I'll do is I'll take a big, huge set of gloves and tuck them in a pouch, and I'll go up, you know, maybe 100 feet, and then take these big, huge wool gloves out and then warm up and take 10 minutes to get my hands warm so the feeling comes back again, and then I'll continue climbing once the feeling comes back.
Pamela, did you have a question? I saw you moving near the camera. No? Okay.
So it sounds so unworldly. Like, I mean, all those little X's having to stop every 100 feet to reheat your hands. I mean, this is not a trip to the grocery store, right? This is some extreme. It's not just an extreme climb, but you're also dealing with where you're at in Canada, dealing with extreme weather at the same time. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You were mentioning lightning before. One of the things that we do is when we're up working a long time, we'll have a couple of ropes hanging all the way down. And if we had to get off quick and we thought there was any chance of lightning, you can rappel, right? And rappelling is, you can, instead of a 2-hour climb down or an hour climb down, you can cut off like almost 90% of that, but just by rappelling.
Pamela, did you want to say something?
Well, it doesn't really matter now because we're past it. But anyway, when Dale was saying, being up there and looking around, there's nothing behind you. I was just going to say I can relate to that a bit at the end part of a skydive, where you're just floating down. You got your parachute out, and it's just I want to hold on to something, but I'm surrounded by nothing.
That's exactly it.
And it's about the same height as well when you're talking like couple of thousand feet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's the same. I think it's probably the same type of feeling. It's contrary to your survival instincts. And like even now, like a lot of times, when I'm focused and working on something, it feels like I'm on the ground. Like these systems are so safe once you're tied off. You forget you're on a tower, and then you look around like, oh, holy shit, I'm kind of high up here, and you kind of forget about it. But the one thing I mentioned, this is the most important thing. If you ever like watch rescue videos and stuff, there's some pretty good videos of guys like turn their GoPros on when they have to get up and help somebody off a crane or something, and it's slow. You have to go slow because you have to pay attention to what you're hooking onto, what equipment you're using, and it's not complicated. It's actually very simple. But there's so many gadgets and so many things. It's quite easily to hook onto the wrong thing, and you may think that you're tied onto something, but if you don't take a double take and recheck everything, I don't know how many times I've looked down and it's like, oh shit, I thought I had that in the right place, and it isn't. So going slow, it's tedious and laborious getting hooked on, especially like if I come off the ladder right now. It's really hard to come off this ladder. Can you see those lines? I don't know if you can see those.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I got lines like that on both sides of the ladder. They're hollow lines. They're called waveguide. And that's where the transmission medium goes up. And they're a certain size. You can't dent these lines. It's basically like open tin. And if you dent these lines, you damage the line, and you know, it's going to cost a lot of money to put up a whole new line again or make that repair. So just for me, it's a it would seem like a simple tower. It's not that high. But just to get past those lines, to rig it all up safely and get around it without damaging the lines, it might take me 40 minutes to do that safely. So it's really annoying, you know, you just want to crawl 10 feet over. But the tower is all the way around. It's not square. Like if I have to go all the way around, and to get from here to there and rig it safely, it takes some time.
Mike in the chat room had a question about GoPro.
Yep.
That's his question. I didn't even know what GoPro is.
Oh, the GoPro, I have a little mount that it's just a little video camera. It can do high def and 4K, and I quite often put it on my head. And that's because it's such high resolution. When I go up and I'm doing an inspection or looking at something, I have a recording of everything that I saw, basically. So if someone says, "Oh, well, you know, you're in the wrong spot," I can go back through the video again and look at what I was doing. So.
And,
yeah,
and to the question too, GoPro was designed as a small mountable camera that could be easily attached to helmets and the like. It's used a lot in the place I see it the most is like mountain bikers. They'll attach this small camera to the helmet and go off and do wild extreme rides, or yeah, you'll see it. Skydivers use these things all the time too. It's a very compact digital camera, digital video camera that was designed to be easily mounted to like a helmet or handlebars or any sort of
your wrist when you're skydiving, so you can. Yeah.
You've used the GoPro, Pamela?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to go offline for a bit, climb down, and then I'll rejoin you probably in about 20 minutes.
Okay, great.
Okay, talk to you in a bit. Bye-bye.
Climbing a 200-foot anything is not on my bucket list. That's all I can say.
Well, it's action camera.
Justin likes the heights right now. He's probably having a smoke, I will guess.
Or some special shooting from the Mars or Moon.
The perceptions of something like that when he was talking about it just so completely different when you actually see it. It is pretty amazing.
So did you want to have a talk about, you were starting to talk about the antenatal testing.
What?
Before all of this happened, you were talking about the antenatal testing.
Oh, yeah.
And they thought they were finding things wrong with babies, but it's actually something wrong with the mum. Were you going to elaborate on that?
Oh, going back to that particular story?
Well, you don't have to.
We can talk about it. I mean, it's really important when you get a test result back that you have someone who can explain it accurately to you, and that person really understands what the heck they're looking at. such as that situation where you know, the test results, they tell the mother that there's a what's the term, abnormality in the fetus's blood when in fact it's in the mother's blood. And now they have, I think they quoted something like 7 cases where women did not know they had cancer until the second result. First they get a result back that says they've got abnormalities in the fetus. The second time, however, when they go for clarification, they find out a doctor tells them that that abnormality is really the result of a tumor. And, you know, they have to test and find out they've got cancer. I mean, it's amazing that they're able to do these tests and get you that kind of information, because with cancer in particular, it's all about the quick diagnosis. You get that, you know, unless you're at stage 4. If you're at stage 1 or 2, that's not a death sentence anymore. But you've got to get that diagnosis quickly.
But if you're pregnant, you can't have chemotherapy or radiation. Well, you can, but you kill the baby.
That's...
So it is still a death sentence at that stage. What you could hope is that it doesn't progress while you're pregnant, have the baby, and then start treatment.
Yeah. That's why they said it's important that you get the accurate diagnosis, so that you know what you're dealing with, and then you can make the decision, whatever how difficult that is. I mean, man, I don't know.
Because the way, I mean, people probably think, oh, chemotherapy's been around for ages, it's very sophisticated. Chemotherapy is actually, it has nothing to do with cancer. It kills rapidly dividing cells. It doesn't discriminate. That's why your hair falls out when you have chemotherapy, because hair growing is a rapidly dividing cell. So is a fetus. So is a tumor. So chemotherapy just kills rapidly dividing cells.
Proton therapy, which we've only started to discuss on TWIS, is something that I'm gonna try to get more information on, more talk about. But it's a very laser focused sort of chemotherapy, which can irradiate a path through and the tumor itself. And because we're getting better at isolating locations of tumors, we are also being able to create this laser-focused proton type of therapy. We're getting to the point where that method of treatment will be much more specific and isolated in its damage done for the curative effect. So it's not just a full body toxification sort of a scenario. So we're getting there. We've got technology that's rapidly progressing in that direction.
Yeah, the next story I was going to talk about, and of course we'll wait for Dale to finish, is immunotherapy. Well, what you're doing is you're training your body's immune system to deal with the cancer. So you're not getting the side effects. It's your own body that's killing the cancer, and then the idea would be you're from then on your immune system's going to be able to recognize that particular cancer. So it's not a short time thing, and you're not killing a lot of the cells around your body and all that side effects. You're training your body's own immune system how to deal with that cancer, and in effect it is a cure.
By the way, off topic, but on general topic. I've got a few more people interested in the Science Island. So I'm now thinking we should create a benchmark of a goal of recruitment of 33. That 33 sounds like a nice unround number to me somehow. But at 33, the $300 to $3,500 range per person for 33 puts us in that 100,000 range buying power, and if we also reduce our ambitions on the amount of land, puts us in a good 60 to 80 acre category, perhaps. I realize that too. I've gotten to the point where I'm looking for. I've sort of narrowed this down to for us to be able to build, and as much as I can find in any sort of building codes anywhere, an actual unit in which people can inhabit with the least amount of building code or anything else necessary. The least restrictive is something that's still maintained, which is a cabin. And if we build in the 400 square feet per resident, per cabin, we don't need to get a whole lot of anything from it. We don't need inspectors. It doesn't have to have heat, indoor plumbing. It doesn't have to have all the things they force you to make when you build a house. And I think I'm in for at least 3 of these, which would all be located on less than a quarter of acre in proximity. And again, this is also, I've watched too much of this show Vikings lately, which if I haven't mentioned the show Vikings enough, that I've been watching Vikings a lot. And one of the things that I was taking away from Vikings on the Science Island aspect was here's a group that has a wide swath of territory that they can call their own. And the Viking village itself is pretty dense. All their little cabin and units are huddled pretty close together because, of course, they're sharing all the other resources. So it just makes sense to be in pretty close proximity. But people I've talked to who also bought into the idea aren't buying into the full Science Island portion of it, but love the idea of being able to have a bug out spot, a vacation spot that each time they sort of go to, get the idea of also building their small cabin is attractive because it's affordable enough that they can do this thing, but also the idea that every time they go back to the place, they can make an improvement to it that they can enjoy for a long time, and that other people would be coming to the place and making improvements, and this thing would sort of build so that every year there'd be this sort of excitement and anticipation of, wow, I wonder if there's an actual road to drive down to get to it, or I want to see if that bathhouse thing project that I helped start, I worked on a little bit last summer when I was there, if that's completed over the winter, and now when I go back, there's going to be this new element and this new added thing. So the idea is gaining momentum, but I think the 33 in that $3 to $4 grand range per cabin building, because this is the sort of thing that's what the buy-in allows you. The buy-in allows you to be able to build a cabin, because for everything that I can tell, from all of the reading I've done on different building codes in different counties and the like, there aren't restrictions on cabins the way there would be if you were creating a housing development of some sort, right? So the individual units would have to be small. If you had, say, or myself, like my desire to have 3 of these, like I'd need 1,200 square feet, right? To be able to bring all the family up and have everybody separated from each other enough to get along for a couple months on Science Island. They could be close enough to each other that I could sort of picture there being instead of a hallway, you would build, a gazebo-type awning between 2 white. So even if it's raining, you can walk from one room to the next, but still technically not connected. And in this sort of building method, you don't need to get development permits. You don't need to get all the building permits. You don't need much of the regulation that goes into the prohibitive portions of the regulations. If you built a 1,200 square foot house, you would have to pay tens to, if it was in the city of Davis, to build a home. It costs $200,000 for the permitting. It's ridiculous, right? When you're in rural, unincorporated territory, you can build a cabin. It has to have some basic structural soundness, but it doesn't have to have every building code that's ever been invented as part of it.
Of the people, I mean, you lived in a teepee back in your youth. Right now, the person, I would say Pamela, has lived the closest recently in a kind of science island sort of setting with minimal, you know, creature comforts, not a lot of room, and yet get along perfectly well with herself and her baby.
Hmm?
I mean,
I
you've
am
got
getting
your...
divorced, so, you know.
Wait, what?
I said I am getting divorced, though, so that's not really a selling point.
Well,
After living this kind of lifestyle with my family.
or is it? Or is it a selling point? Hey, here's a way to find out if you're with the wrong person. Get to know them really well, right? Like, what else will illustrate, all right, made some mistakes at some point in my life, and I now have an opportunity to correct them. How do I know this? Because of having to live closely with them in a way that I got to know them well enough to know that I shouldn't be with them. I don't see a downside from that.
Spend a year in a tent and a car with minimal contact with other people, living basically out camping beyond civilization for a year or so. Yeah, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
He likes it.
I don't know, Chelsea, I don't know what kind of a vote Chelsea gets on this whole thing, but...
Well, she started camping when she was 2 weeks old, so she's fine.
Yeah, you know, finding the people, okay. If you, I mean, I'm going to guess you can find a property. I'm going to guess you can build a structure. I mean, I'm thinking of like the tiny homes in states where there were housing restrictions and they got around it by putting a wheel so that it's an RV, not a home. And the rules on RVs are different. So I think that's doable. The whole thing, I'm thinking, and actually it doesn't apply to me, but is income. You've got, unless it's the vacation thing. The vacation thing, yes. But if you're thinking of more than a vacation thing, a place you might want to live at for 6 months out of the year, then you're always going to have to come back to income.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I guess, how much of an infrastructure do you need? Maybe not. Solar panels, if you want to add some power to all that other stuff.
Right.
That adds expense. But for your basic, what you're talking about, Justin, I would say that is doable if you can find, you know, those 33 people.
Right. And I guess here's how to look at it. Here's how to look at it in the shorter term. The shorter term is here's a vacation spot that's going to be populated by people that we in a circle of friends, right? Who will all be vacationing to the same spot for a couple weeks, couple months, 6 months out of the year. That's, to me, just inviting enough, right? That's an inviting. I like that idea. I like that idea by itself. But then, over time, again, as these incremental things get added, as everybody's there, and what are we there for? Well, we're there for vacation, but what's our vacation? Our vacation idea of fun is to sort of build and add on and implement and adapt this land into this village, into this livable space. So each year as things get added, well, okay, maybe the first time we went out there, it was really, about a month of living in a teepee is probably more as much as most people can can handle. Year 2, there's actually cabins. Year 3, there was a bathhouse, not just the shower. We had that portable solar heated shower thing that like 2 people a day, 3 people a day could get through with somewhat warm water. Now we got this bathhouse with this, you know, there's a fire pit over here, and it heats these stones, it pushes the, right, or whatever it is. I'm just making the upping stuff, but as time goes by, if you have a spot that you can always add to and always improve, over time it becomes livable for longer periods of time and more inviting and more someplace you'd want to spend 2 months or 3 months. Now, income-wise,
I mean, you take like Dale. Somebody like Dale, 3 years, he's probably got everything. You know, he might even have that Wi-Fi connection. And we both have seen through the tiny homes, etc. People have built some amazing structures and added I can't think amenities to them relatively inexpensively. You just need the skill levels to do it. And somebody to train you, somebody with that skill levels to show you how to do it. But yes, I can see that. Starting as simple as possible, the vacation home, and then building on it. You know, if you get people like Dale, yourself, Pamela, not me so much. I don't know about the whole building thing.
well, so like the things that I would be most interested in working on like the day one project would be like the first thing I think I'd be interested in, I guess, depending, like if we're talking about completely raw land, would be just a roadway that runs through the thing, which is a big enough project by itself. But that to me, like the access to the land is probably, if it's raw, absolutely raw land, that's the first thing I sort of think of. The second thing I think of is basically laying concrete the size of a tennis court with a like a curb all the way around it, right? As a water collection device, and the submergible cisterns or tanks or whatever it is that runs into. Because I think no matter what, you know, water supply, as much as we can track in for weeks and months and make trips to collect more drinking water, I think it gets tougher when you talk about irrigation, showering needs, that sort of thing. So I think my main focus would be to make the thing water sustainable. That would probably be my main focus. Now, other people, I don't know, might think about how to start a primitive solar array, how to get the Wi-Fi dishes. If we build a tower, can we get a microwave? Like, there's other, you know, right? Like, other people could have other things to focus on. My first thing that I would want to be focused on, I guess, would be water collection. Would be whenever we come back there for that summer, there's this ample water reservoir that we can tie into purifiers to use to, you know, grow a summer crop. And I might be there for a month. Somebody else might come that next month, and somebody else might be that following month. And, you know, as long as we have a chain of sort of custody, like a relay race is the thing, of people monitoring, we could have a seasonal crop there. We could have a seasonal, you know, we could have a summer growing season where there's a harvest at the end. You know, maybe I was there in spring, and I was the first one to start, but maybe I've logged in another couple weeks around the harvest to come back together with the thing and enjoy the lettuce, tomatoes, and cabbage we grew, or whatever the, you know, whatever.
Pamela, I got a question for you. When you were in those remote locations, what did you do about water?
Wait, me?
No, Pamela.
Oh.
Yeah, no, we took it with us because we were in the desert, so yeah, wasn't much choice. Well, there was one place we found with a river, and we did use filtration systems with life straw and stuff like that, which was great, and that meant we could stay there longer. But yeah, no, we just had to take it with us.
When I was in Greenland, there was a stream, or maybe even a creek. Creek? It was pretty small, really, but it was coming right off the glacier that ran through the little town of Kana. And we had the cabin, and we were staying in a pretty nice cabin. It was very well insulated. It had like a whale oil heating system. It was tough. It took a long time to get the thing pumped in and then heated. I didn't understand how to use it. But we collected our water from the stream, and that was the water that we used for dishes, that we would, we'd have to, filling up the tub was forget about it. In fact, we gave up. There was a friend that we made, I think it was the mayor of the town's wife, that we befriended, who had a primitive plumbing system there that fed off of the creek upstream, but also had like an inline electric water heater so we could take hot showers like once a week. So the bathing thing became a mute issue, but otherwise we would have had to have heated, and then filled this tub that was there. But all the drinking water we had to collect there. Same thing with the teepees. You packed it in, or you camped near a stream. You had that water source right there with you. I haven't lived in or seen directly a water capture and usage system myself. I know that there's not far from here. There's places. Some of them are individual ranches. Some of them are actual like prototype alternative building communities where they've done this.
If you have the people with the right skill set, you're good to go anywhere. Yeah. In fact, that probably may be the most important element, particularly if you start talking about building on things, is the people.
Mm-hmm.
You get the right people. And you get somebody like Dale, you're good to go.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And any obstacle we can think of, people have encountered it and overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be back in Far North Queensland in September, and I live in a really rainy area, and I have like a self-contained flat that it's a huge house that's been subdivided up and everything, And so my neighbours and I were talking last time I was there, and the water there that comes out of the tap is perfect. It's pretty much the best water you can get in the country. And I said, why would we bother collecting the water, off our gutters and everything? And I said, because that water's free. Even though the stuff in the tap is fantastic, let's collect the free stuff and save the stuff in the tap, and save ourselves collectively some money. Oh, yeah. We don't pay much for it, but why pay anything when we're, Right. So I doubt that anyone will have done anything with regards to collecting it before I get back. So I'm kind of the pusher of things. But when we get back, we'll start collecting it and do stuff with that. And then I'll let you know what works and what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. So there's one system I've seen that looks like it kind of failed, which is like this rain gutter collection tanks that are above ground. By the time you would like to use that water, it has, is either largely evaporated because you kept the thing open, I guess, or has been somehow contaminated by light and created algae. And you wouldn't want to drink it, but you could still, irrigate with it a little bit. So it's got to be below ground. It's got to be someplace that's completely immune from light sources. There's some I found online large plastic tanks that you can bury that are designed for rainwater capture. there's some methods out there. I mean, people have worked on it for scenarios that range from desert to just completely rural irrigation. But it's, yeah, people have been here before, done this before. We're going to be tapping into other people's expertise on having done this in the past.
Yeah, where I am now, there's a rainwater tank, and yesterday I had a glass of water out of the first glass of water out of the tap was perfect, and then I don't know, an hour or so later, I got another glass out of the tap, and it was cloudy, and I went, ugh. So
Yeah.
I boiled it, and then cooled it and drank it. It was fine. I mean, if you boil it, it's okay. It doesn't matter if it's cloudy. Just filter it again. Yeah. So there's ways and means. But then you have to, add up. I mean, this is what I'm thinking when I go back to Far North Queensland. Is it worth the electricity to boil the water that I'm collecting to save on paying for the water out of the tap? So yeah, I think I'll have to come up with a better filtration system than that. But there was one on. I know you watched all like the Long Way Down and By Any Means, Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman. There was one that they built on the Sydney to Tokyo when Charlie Borman went to where did he go? Somewhere, with that charity. Anyway, and they went and they built a filtration system for water out. Oh, I've got an answer too. Anyway, out of sand, and there were 3 levels, and you could put it in brown, and it came out perfectly clear. I could probably watch that episode again and maybe because I live 1 street away from the beach. I've got all the sand I want. Now you asked a question earlier about the internet in Indonesia. It's over the 3G mobile network.
Okay.
So
they've got towers that are still tied to a direct connection cable going under the ocean leading to.
No, 3G. Mobile cell.
Right.
Cell phone.
But the cell phone towers themselves are hardwired into a large not T1 line, but what do you call it? Optical line, whatever it is. Right?
Yeah.
They're still tied in directly, and then through the towers they're using cell signal to get. But you still have to have a tower that's close enough that's hardwired in to that internet to get that access.
Right. Well, there you go. I got the answer.
Way to get international answers at the snap of a finger, Pamela.
Oh, it took a little while.
Yeah, pretty quick.
Use that horse riding or something.
By the way, Pamela, I had a dream that you and Chelsey showed up at my doorstep the other night. And
even Chelsea's excited about that.
Yeah, and I was like, Pamela! Wow, great to see you. What are you doing here? And you're like, well, I thought we were doing the Science Island thing. I was like, yeah, I don't know if we got it all put together yet, but it's the conversation's still ongoing. And then you were like, oh, I probably should have finished my lawyer degree before I came. I was like, well, yeah, I don't know. Like, do you have to start all over here, or can you just, like, finish it here? You're like, I don't know. I was like, yeah, this is probably a bad decision, but, well, and then it was actually, I gave you this room and the house to live in, and then I was like, I've got to get all my shit out of here now. I don't have anywhere to put it. So I moved all of my shit into the living room. So like, you're welcome to come, but a little notice next time, Pamela. Just a little bit of notice is all I'm asking for.
I'm sorry that my dream self imposed upon you without any notice.
I didn't really feel imposed upon. Honestly, I was just unprepared. Like, I felt like I could have, like, given you a better welcome if I knew you were coming.
Well, next time I dream myself over there, I'll let you know first.
Like, I could have at least cleaned. I could have at least done dishes. I mean, I could have done something. I could have taken. There's a. I know you can't see this from here. There's a beer can pyramid. I can't actually. My hand, if I try to point to the top of it, it leaves the top of the screen. When I try to point, like I could have cleaned up a little better. Is all I'm saying.
Well, I'm trying to work it out because I am looking at being in France in November for a week or so, and I figure if I'm already that far, I may as well come all the rest of the way around that time. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right, I'll start moving stuff now.
That's not what I meant.
That's all the warning I need. I got a couple weeks. What was it?
No, I'm going to be in Europe in November for a few days. So I figure if I'm already that far, I may as well go the rest of the way. But we'll see.
All right. Well, give me like 24 hours notice. That's about as much time as it takes me to do a sink full of dishes.
Okay. 24. I'm trying to.
Close, but I think if the pressure's on with the deadline, I might get there.
Yeah. I'll.
So you're going to be doing some long distance traveling again.
Yeah. Looks like it.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah. Well, I found out this month. I can't say anything much about it yet, but I think it'll be fine. And it looks like there's a conference that we'll be going to in France in November.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go to Indonesia before that, and then go to France from Indonesia. So I'm going to visit my friend. And,
Welcome back.
And then
Hello, Dale. You made it back. 2 thumbs up. You made it back.
I made $20. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We didn't place any bets.
I think you did.
Actually, that's amazing. That I mean, I don't know. You got all geared up. You went up a tower. You come back, and that wasn't that much. You know, in what, half an hour? Something like that.
Dale is insane.
Sorry, you kind of broke up a little bit there, Ed.
Picture was terrific. We could hear you just most of the time. No, it worked out very well.
Yeah, thank you for showing us.
Thing that we're most impressed
you're welcome.
wasn't the fact that you got up the tower, but you got up the tower with 40 pounds of equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always heavy stuff. It's a good exercise plan.
Oh man, you've got it. I can easily see you must be in way better shape than me. Do you do that every week, let's say, during summertime? Or do you actually have to work out or something? I mean, you're lugging, this is physical labor there.
Well, I generally work out a lot. I injured myself a few months ago, so I had to kind of relax a little bit. But yeah, I'm pretty active. Just lots of, but I always keep busy doing something, right? I like.
What the heck is Jani got there? It looks like some weird little finger. I don't know.
A straw?
A Yep.
Hey.
Emmi oppivan kenopi. Ja mä only hope.
I'll make you tea.
Oh, you'll have some tea things.
What was that?
Ed said he made some tea, and I said, yes, thank you, I'll have some tea. If you're offering.
That would be so good if you could make us all tea, Ed.
I can make you all tea. Getting it to you and having you drink it, that might be the problem. I'll tell you what, though. We're going to have that little replicator device someday. So I'll be able to make the tea and just press a button, and then it'll go across the internets or something, and then reconfigure itself or recombobulate itself in your home. I don't know.
That would be cool. Is Justin out smoking?
Probably took a break. I do have. I don't. Pamela, do you have any questions for Dale? I mean, I've got plenty of stories left. Dale, how much longer are you going to be able to hang in? Do you think?
Probably about half an hour, yeah.
Half an hour? All right. Because I got a couple of complicated stories here. Actually, one of them, it's a little bit shorter, dealing with computers and dealing with the people at MIT developing an algorithm to help robots when they encounter a situation they're not programmed for. Not just it's a couple of pages. The first sentence, I mean, it says decentralized, partial, observable, Let me screen share. I don't want people looking at the top of my head if they have to. Uh-oh. Where are we? Button pushing. Cancel.
Hologram pushing.
A woman.
Showing holograms.
Okay. I will put it in the chat area. It is called Helping World. Yes?
I was just saying to Jani, it's Princess Leia, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh.
Good one.
Gain with this.
R2-D2.
Yeah, I have a crush on your R2-D2.
What did you think about the new R2-D2? Little guy with the rotating head?
It's not R2-D2, the new one.
A new one? What do you mean?
It's PP8.
Huh? What? They reinvented R2-D2?
No.
No?
New droid.
Oh, no, I like R2-D2. I don't want. No, I'm loyal. I'm loyal to R2-D2. I don't want any imposters.
Well, I'm going to make my tea, and Justin is here to entertain us. We have Dale back, so I guess you guys can vamp while I make tea.
All right. Ed's gone. Let's party.
So R2-D2, I don't think is replaceable, because if you pay somewhat close attention, or just are not completely unconscious while watching all of the current Star Wars rendition movies, you realize that in every scenario when everybody's ass really needed to be saved, R2-D2 is the one that came through. He is the ass-saving droid. That's what they should have just named him. Not R2-D2. That's too vague. Ass-saving droid would have been much more to, right?
Everyone else would be dead. He's the hero in every single movie if you watch it properly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact...
Yeah, he's just like, oh my god, these idiots, I've got to save them again. You know he's thinking that.
Right. So, in fact, I mean, you take the first movie. We don't get beyond that diplomatic envoy getting boarded by the Imperial ship, we don't get that message. Never gets out, right? Without R2D2. Without R2D2, there is no one to turn off the garbage disposal crushy thing. We again 2 points when we don't get out of the first movie. Yeah. And this continues throughout, where it's always R2D2 who is absolutely crucial to every plan and every activity. So yeah, they can. There's other robots out there. We know there's other robots. We know there's androids. We know there's all this. Nobody will ever replace.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any other character could be written out, and the movie would still go on. But without R2D2, you're looking at a complete rewrite. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Uh-huh. I know. I agree with you, Chelsea. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, she's so much fun. Yeah.
So what were the science stories that is? Was there some good ones?
Sorry?
What moving?
What science stories did I miss?
And BB-8.
Oh, science stories. We just talked about some antenatal testing, where previously they thought they were finding abnormalities in the fetus, and it turns out it's the abnormality in the mum that had gone untested. Yeah, and yeah, so that's something to look at, antenatal testing.
Yeah. So that's also this quick point, because I missed that conversation myself. I have 3 children. Each time we agreed not to do any prenatal test.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the invasiveness of the way that they do the test is already frightening enough. But it creates that conversation. What if you know there's a problem? What do you do? And in each instance, it was agreed absolutely nothing. So if you're not going to do anything about it, why have the test?
Now, I agree with you. I had all my testing done, but I wouldn't have done anything about it, just because one of my first cousins has Down syndrome. So, although there's no reason to think that I would have Down syndrome just because he is, we don't know what causes that. Yeah. So I thought, and I would not do anything about it if. Oh yeah. I took something off there. Sorry. I would not have done, but it's just good to be prepared. So you can go, okay, cool. So that's what we're expecting.
Yeah.
Because that's what you need to do when you have.
And I think that was brought up, but I think the argument that at least in every case came up was, how do you prepare? Like, what do you do? Like, and won't there be time enough? Because babies are babies, regardless. There'll be more than enough time to calm yourself or freak out yourself, to learn what you need to learn, in that real time. So
I thought, I read every book on babies before I had a baby, because I knew I wasn't going to get any time to read after having a baby. So if I had wanted to prepare for something, then I would have used time wisely. Because once the baby's here, you don't have time, and I was exhausted, after 48 hours labor and then surgery. So, which I like to bring up at every chance. Anyway, but yeah, so I would have gone, okay, cool. Now I need to research that, and then it came back and everything's fine. Great. I don't need to research that. I can go lay in a hammock in the sun, because I'm not going to get to do that for another 15 years.
Yeah, and in all cases, I had been researching the procreation aspect and had given no thought to what happens as a result.
What do you mean you're researching it? Your contribution was
No,
quite
there's a lot of research that needs to be done in how to or sometimes not to make it. It's not as easy. I mean, granted, there's certain instincts that you can rely on, but yeah, I mean, my entire parenting persona or philosophy, I think, comes from just having remembered my own childhood. And I always think that I had a really, really good one. Like, and it was weird to me. Like, there's a certain age, I guess, and it seemed like it was maybe high school, maybe junior high school even, where you started to learn that not everybody around you's upbringing was the same. And in some cases, I was just mortified. Like, that's your parents? That, like, your parents hit you sometimes? Like, that's insane to me. Like, that would... Are you sure they're your parents and not some, like, doppelganger aliens who are coming to Earth to take up? Like, it would be absolutely... I mean, it was just absolutely so, like, inconceivable that a parent would hit you. To me. That I find out that, friends of mine, this would happen to regularly if they did screw-ups that were were like daily occurrences in my household. Right? Like, my screw-ups were so many that I would not have survived my childhood if I had been born in some of these other families, So that's, like, I think I was I didn't have to put in a whole lot of thought into being a parent. I had parents that provided all of that insight before I even desired to be a parent.
Let me ask you guys, all of you are parents, except, I don't know about Jani, I'm not. But my question would be, how much, you have two kinds of parenting. Stage one is you're raising that child, and that child is going to be prepared to deal with the outside world that ever is, whatever that is. Then you have training in the society that you're living in, going to school and all of that. Now, it would seem to me the first one, kind of the DNA. I mean, Pamela, you read a whole bunch of books to prepare yourself, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say you would have been you wouldn't be doing do you think anything dramatically different now in terms of you're with Chelsea all the time, you play with her, you do all, would you do that any different based on what you've read? Would you not spend as much time?
No, but I didn't. There's a lot of things that I probably would have worried about had I not read a bunch of books and then gone, okay, that's completely normal, so when this happens, that's fine. Because, yeah, I don't have a mother or sister or anyone to ask. And, yeah, so it was good. I read things ahead of time, and one of the best books I read, I think I've already given it to someone now, but it was called How to Have Your Second Child First. Because most parents, completely fuss over the first child and freak out. By the time you have the second one, it's just like, they're eating dirt again, and yeah, that's fine. Because you've already been through it. And so that was a really good book, How to Have Your Second Child First. I can't remember the author. If you people out there watching, look it up, it's good. So stuff like that was helpful. So I'm a much, and even, people, because they come and visit you and make sure you don't have postnatal depression and things like that. And I had everyone who came and they checked. And they said, is this your first child? And they're like, looking, yeah. You're really relaxed. Yeah, thanks. So that's probably the difference. Yeah. Research made me a more relaxed mum.
I've been raising all of my children sort of differently from each other. my first child was my son Sebastian, and he said his first sentence at 12 months. He couldn't walk yet, but he said, "I can't see that." He had the word moon. He had two words. He had puma, which meant he wanted something. He was going to give you something. He wanted to do something else. Puma was his word for everything. And the second word was moon. Like we'd go out and look at the moon, and he learned it, and he'd say moon, moon. And then, 12 months old, he's looking out the window. Where last night we were pointing out the moon, and he was saying moon, and it was cute. And he looks, and he goes, "I can't see the moon." And it was both this sort of, permanence observation, where he saw that this thing that he thought should be there again at this time wasn't, which is a conceptual thing, and putting words together in a sentence at 12 months, which is, I got my second child. I was actually a little concerned because she didn't really talk a whole lot till age 2, but that's apparently normal. Sebastian, the first, he's to this day has a better vocabulary than I do. He's always been an extremely verbal kid, but he also walked later than the other two kids that I have, right? And there is, I learned at the time, sort of a path choice that infants make from gathering coordination quickly or verbal skills quickly. And I mean, there was a point where I was afraid that he had some issue where he wasn't going to be able to walk because he would slide himself on his butt around when other kids his age could pull themselves up and sort of walk around things, and he just couldn't be bothered by it. And so and observing enough of these kids, I get it now. They sort of either grasp onto verbal skills, or they grasp onto coordination skills. My middle child was a good combination of the two. She walked much faster than the first, but her verbal skills came much later. But she's got her own skill set. She's like definitely a creative storyteller. She could, once she got her verbal skills, she could do like free flow rhyming in real time, and like it was just amazing like how she could come up with these stories and have them rhyming and doing all this stuff, and she writes and does all this stuff. My youngest one is the funniest of the bunch, right? She was like, you play peekaboo with a kid at a certain point because there's a permanence issue, right? It's the fact that you've disappeared and reappear. They don't actually expect you to reappear once you've disappeared behind a blanket, say, right? It's always surprising to them. And that's why peekaboo to an infant's really, really interesting. What's wild is that my youngest, at 6 months old, would play peekaboo with us. She would hold the blanket up and then be like, aha! And I don't know to this day if it was she thought that we thought she was disappearing or if she was making us disappear, right? But she thought it was hilarious to hold up the blanket and, and then back again. And again, I don't know, we were getting vanished from planet Earth and she was bringing us back, or she was pretending to disappear. I don't know. But there's, then you start to get into the parenting thing where you're sort of she's also pretty. I noticed the other day she was balancing. She was balancing on my back. She was walking on my back because I lay down, but she got on my back and she was balancing. And backs are a little squishy and wobbly, and she was managing to stand up there. So I've taken the couch cushions off and I threw them down the hallway. So now whenever she walks down the hallway, she's walking on couch cushions, which aren't as stable. And at 2 years, 2 years the end of last month, just turned 2, she gets a kick out of walking up and down these couch cushions in the hallway because it's all wobbly, and she's doing this whole balance thing. So I think I've got one that the verbal skills showed up really early. One where she was really coordinated early, and another that got humor quicker than the rest. But they're all going to develop differently. So I think in a sort of what's the Montessori sort of a way. You want to feed those things that they're excelling at, and interested in doing. And that's the best kind of parenting. If your kid likes to spill stuff, give them stuff to spill. If your kid likes to knock over blocks, build those blocks up for them to knock down again. If your kid is very verbal, talk to them incessantly. You know, give them whatever they're attracted to early, and they'll accelerate to their fullest potential in that arena.
I can see Dale's walking somewhere, so perhaps he's ready to call it a night.
I think he's going to go wake up his children and ask them.
Did you see the cushions on my floor? I've been doing that.
That's what he's doing. He's setting up couch cushions down all the hallways to test the family's balance in the morning.
9 months old. At 10 months old, she walked up to the 2-year-old neighbor and pushed him over. And he went, yeah, she can ride the bike thing around, and she takes herself to the potty, but no sentences.
Wait, how old is she?
14 months.
And she's taking herself to the potty?
I didn't do anything.
Wow, that's amazing. So
not all the time, but you know, most of the time.
I hope my children never listen to this. My son, whose first sentence was at 12 months, I think may hold the record for being potty trained the latest of any late toddler. Except for me. I think I hung onto my diaper till like age 5. I might have beaten him. But he held on pretty late. The middle child, of course, thus far has the record, but she cut it in half at or at least my record, my number is, I was 5. She was just past 2. I don't know when I'm a little afraid that the youngest one, because she's 2, but she doesn't even tell me. I have to find out by scent whether or not she's filled that diaper. She just doesn't care. Just does not care. Can be walking around with a loaded diaper, totally happy, doesn't care. Actually a little irritated that I want to interrupt whatever she's doing to change the loaded diaper. But yeah, I don't know. There's you have to take each child as this case by case basis where I don't know. I almost feel like it doesn't do any good to push them to potty train or push them to work on their verbal or push them to be coordinated, because eventually it all comes together. They just are going to accelerate early at the thing that they like to do best or are best at.
If anything, I've held her back in a way, because I only bought her a potty to go on when she was taking an interest in the toilet. Because what all the books say is leave the door open, let them see you go to the toilet, and then they associate that. And so she started taking an interest in it. So I thought, okay, I'll buy a potty. Doesn't matter if it's there for a year. Who cares? And she started going. I wouldn't mind if she was in nappies a bit longer, because it ends up down her legs, and she pees on the floor. I would like a bit more notice. I would like a bit less independence. That's okay. It's tiled. You clean it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I haven't pushed her. She just does her own thing. She climbs on things. She climbs on smaller and smaller things. She started balancing on big ice cream buckets, and now she's actually finding the smallest items she can and balancing on one leg and stuff like this. But still not talking. So I see what you mean. She's doing all the physical stuff.
So and I had a conversation with my 2-year-old. Actually, well, is it today? I guess it's yesterday now. But just within the last 24 hours, where I was like, you've got to tell me when you go poo. You've got to tell Papa. You got to say poo, poo. And she goes, Papa poo. I'm like, okay, I don't know if that you mean as an insult or what. And she goes, Mama poo. I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah. Papa poo, Mama poo. And she named her sister, she named her brother, and her grandma. Yeah, everybody poos. Yes, everybody poos. Yes, we all poop. It's all the time. Maybe your mother more than the rest of us, or more often. But it was like really like that was her reaction. Was like what's the big deal? Everybody does it, you know. But yeah, once this one can tell me, like my oldest, even though he held on to wearing a diaper longer than I think any toddler, except for myself, throughout history has ever done, he would tell. I mean, I got to the point where I could change my own diaper before I was out of them. Right? I could handle the whole operation myself. I'm still gonna wear a diaper. By the way, if you go to the store, a pack of Camels would be nice. All right? Like it was way older than I should have been for having diapers, and younger than I should have been for starting smoking. But
okay, Justin, let me just jump in and say, if you've had a lot of experience with diapers and you're good at it, I'm just going to say one thing: when you get older, depends.
Yeah, right. But no, this is basically, I almost didn't have a gap between these two events. I held on to my diaper so long. But the boy, because he was so articulate, could always tell me. You know, he'd come up and tell me it was time. Yeah, I'm still working with the youngest one. I think I'm really close. I think within actually the next month or two, I'll be getting updates based on her acceptance of understanding that everybody poos and that this is something you need to relate. I think I'm there. I think I've finally gotten into the tell me when it's time, don't let me figure out by scent.
Well, mine's still she's in pull-ups, and I have cloth nappies. Yeah, so she pulls them up and down, but that's the problem. Like if there's a mess in there, and then she goes to pull it back up, and then need the bath, and yeah. So
that's what I don't want to encourage so much. It's actually already like she figured out how to take off her shoes recently. And so now, like, you know, whenever she wants to take off her shoes, but she's not that proficient at it. So it's like she'll be in the car seat and we'll be going somewhere, and then I'll go take her out and she'll have one shoe on, and the other one will be like flung over the back seat somewhere. Like it's.
Okay, I want to jump in. Wiz Mike, that's Mike Jobin, is still here with us. He's been hanging in the whole time. So I want to make sure he gets to read his comment. Kids do anything to get attention, and so do adults.
Oh, yeah.
And did we learn that as kids, and should we teach that to kids? Don't know. And Dale, are you still hanging in there, Dale? After this fascinating discussion of potty training. Okay. I was just gonna say. Thank you so much for that spectacular live event. I mean, that I can say without a doubt that was the live event. That was the TWIS Minion live event of the year.
Yeah, that was definitely the coolest thing ever. All right. On that note, I think this is probably a good point for me to exit gracefully-ish.
All right.
Okay.
Dale was unfortunately frozen on my screen.
I wasn't sure whether he was completely tired or what the story was, but
he's completely frozen in my screen, and this. Is that the way it is? Really?
Yeah.
Kind of a look.
Well, we might want to make some dinner.
After all I put in, this is what I come back to.
Yeah, right. It seems that on one hand very forgiving, and on the other very judgmental at the same time.
He left. Yeah, we might go make some dinner because it's getting to that stage. Yeah.
Okay.
Good night, Dale. Good night, Ed. Good night,
Good night,
Yanni. Good
Justin.
night, Pamela. Good night, Chelsea.
Good night, Uncle Justin.
I'll see y'all next week.
See you next week. Bye. Okay, Pamela. Just you and me, so we will say good night to Chelsea. Good night, Chelsea. And to our friend Yanni. And Dale is back. I don't know what's going on.
They're going and going.
My connection keeps failing. The internet is telling me to get off the internet, I guess, because it keeps failing on me.
Yeah, I think we're all going to go now anyway.
All
Okay.
right.
Sounds good. We'll see you all next week.
See you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.